Chapter 32. She finally gave Yi Huanyan a bath and used all her strength to move her from the bathroom to the bed. She had a high fever, and Ji Xiaoya did not dare to sleep. After putting a cold towel on her head, she yawned and went to the bathroom to see the clothes she had changed out of. She pinched her nose and looked at the smelly business suit, thinking that she should just throw it away. However, when she saw the logo on the back of the neck, she opened her mouth wide and took a deep breath. This price was enough for her to buy a whole season's worth of clothes. It was better not to throw it away. She could just wash it and wear it. The cold towel was placed on Yi Huanyan's forehead, intermittently stimulating her burning and confused nerves. She thought about the entanglement between her and Ling Han all these years, and it became more and more like a dream, and she became more and more irrational. She indulged in a half-awake state and had the same dream over and over again. First, the scene of getting off work repeated. He left indifferently, not caring about her life or death. Then the scene changed. At the edge of the cliff, he watched as she fell into the abyss. His eyes were cold, and he left resolutely. Ling Han. Han. Ling Han. When Ji Xiaoya returned to the bedside with a new towel, she heard her ravings. She could not help but mutter, "You're burning up like this, and you're still thinking about Ling Han?" She and Yi Huanyan were university classmates. They had the same major, the same dormitory, and later graduated to the same company. She witnessed Yi Huanyan turn from an innocent and lively young lady to the well-organized secretary Yi in the workplace. She also witnessed Yi Huanyan's expectations for Ling Han shattering now. There was a broken phone on the bedside. It seemed to light up twice, but the screen was broken, so she could not see what it was. Ji Xiaoya changed the wet towel on her forehead and stared at her face with mixed feelings. Yi Huanyan was the person she envied the most when she was in university. She was beautiful, had a good figure, and a good temper. She kept a low profile and was usually polite to the people around her. She didn't put on the airs of a rich young lady at all. If it weren't for her parents driving over to help her move her things and bringing her graduation gift, no one in the dormitory would have known that her family was so rich. The limited edition white sports car parked below the dormitory was too eye-catching. What she envied the most was that she had an older brother at that time. He would always ask someone to send her a lot of delicious food and fun things to play with. Everyone in the dormitory benefited from this. At that time, Ji Xiaoya didn't know that Yi Huanyan's brother was Ling Han. She also didn't know that Ling Han wasn't her biological brother. She only remembered that every weekend, there would be an auntie holding a loudspeaker downstairs and shouting, "For Yi Huanyan, the things your brother sent you are here. Come down and get them." Then everyone in the dormitory would rush downstairs, wanting to see the legendary brother. Although Yi Huanyan usually kept a low profile, her food and clothes were not bad. Everyone in the dormitory could guess that her family must be good. With such a roommate and a single brother, coupled with Yi Huanyan's appearance, everyone in the dormitory was looking forward to meeting this Yi Xiong. But Ling Han never came in person. He always asked someone to bring the things to the dormitory, put them down, and left. There was not even a word in the box. The girls in the dormitory weren't sad. After all, this brother Yi was too sensible. He always sent 4 copies of the things. The girls in the dormitory obediently took the box back and divided the spoils. There were many fashionable toys and imported snacks. It was like a robot cat's bag of treasures. It became the expectation of the 408 dormitory every week. Until graduation, Ji Xiaoya was lucky enough to see the legendary brother Yi from afar. At that time, they were taking graduation photos. The 2 girls in the dormitory packed up in advance and left with their parents. After hugging each other and crying, she went to wash her face. When she came back to find Yi Huanyan, she only saw Yi Huanyan's parents taking photos in front of the school building. Looking for Yan Yan. "I just saw her go that way. She saw her brother coming." Jiang Milan smiled and pointed in the direction. Thus, she was able to see Ling Han from afar and was shocked. Sure enough, he was the same as the girls in 408's legends. He was even more outstanding. He was extraordinarily handsome and wore a black suit that set off his tall figure. Countless words of praise flashed through Ji Xiaoya's mind. In the end, it turned into a sigh. Comparisons are odious. Why don't I have such a good life? Before this, at the graduation party, Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan had a night chat. At that time, the other two people in the dormitory were drunk and talked too much. Yi Huanyan was slightly tipsy. She pointed at the stars in the sky and laughed until her saliva was about to come out. Xiaoyu, my brother is even better looking than the stars in the sky. Ji Xiaoya had a good tolerance for alcohol, but people who could not get drunk after 1,000 glasses had their own sorrows. For example, these few drunkards in front of her gave her a headache. Good looking, good looking. Your whole family is good looking. I like my brother very, very much. My brother is the best man in the world. Do you have a crush on your brother? No, he's not even my biological brother. Yi Huanyan leaned on her shoulder, her face bright red. You must be very disappointed, right? I know that you guys are a bunch of ill-intentioned people. You're all thinking about my brother Linghan, so I won't let you see, humph. Ji Xiaoya did not know whether to laugh or cry. The drunk Yi Huanyan was like a child. She had completely lost her usual decorum and was simply fighting for every inch of land. She hugged her neck and shook it. I must marry brother Linghan. Okay. Marry him. Although Ji Xiaoya was still ignorant about love, she saw the love in Linghan's eyes. That kind of look of disdain on the surface, but in fact, there was a doting look in his eyes. She envied that for a long time. But later, how did it become like this? She looked at Yi Huanyan as if she was having a nightmare. She kept shouting, "Don't go." Her facial features were twisted together as if she was in pain and struggling in hell. She did not know when her angelic brother, who used to bathe in the sun, became the soul-reaping emissary of hell. He was cold and heartless, surrounded by scandals, shuttling between all kinds of women all day long, hurting Yi Huanyan badly. All these years, she was the only witness to Yi Huanyan's pain. Her original envy gradually turned into a complex feeling every time she saw the two of them. She still did not understand whether Linghan loved Yi Huanyan or not. If he loved her, how could he bear to hurt her like this? If he did not love her, why did he not let her go and let her give up and live her own life? After Yi Huanyan's phone stopped flashing, Ji Xiaoya's phone began to ring nonstop. It was Linghan's third call. She did not pick it up. She stared angrily at the phone screen. I'll let you, a scumbag, worry and reflect on yourself. Where were you when your girlfriend was hurt like this? Now you know how to look for her, but you don't pick up the phone. Chapter 33. Brother Linghan, don't go. Ji Xiaoya grimaced as she looked at her hand that was being held. Her hand was about to be crushed by this woman who had a fever. She couldn't help but complain. You came to my house to eat my food and drink my wine. I even let you sleep on my bed, yet you're still thinking about other men. What a heartless little thing. The phone on the carpet beside her didn't ring again. Linghan had always been a high and mighty person. Ji Xiaoya felt that the sun had risen from the west for him to call her 3 times in a row. Ji Xiaoya's house was shrouded in a gloomy cloud. Meanwhile, in a famous hotel apartment in Lanjiang City, a tall man had just returned from today's concert. He couldn't hide his exhaustion. For so many years, he had been working alone abroad. It wasn't easy for him to get the capital to leave his family. He wanted to come back to be with her, but things didn't go as he wished. He was back, but she was no longer in the same place. His manager, Zhao Dali, and his assistant moved the gifts that fans had sent backstage to the living room of the apartment. One of the gifts was particularly eye-catching. It was a huge black box that was almost as tall as a person. 2 assistants had to carry it in together. Zhao Dali's eyes were sharp. He saw the logo on the black box at a glance. Oh, which rich little fan sent this instrument? This brand is purely handmade. It's not cheap. There are only a few instruments produced in a year. The female assistant smiled and shook her head. These fans can't wait to give you everything they have when they're nice to you. But when they're ruthless, it's hard for ordinary people to imagine. Zhao Dali knew what she was talking about. He laughed dryly and didn't say anything. He turned around and opened the black box. The beautifully crafted guitar looked particularly noble in the black wooden box, revealing classical and elegant. Nian Nian, come and see. This guitar is really good. Su Nianhua was also a person who cherished musical instruments. He saw this guitar in Italy a long time ago. At that time, he left in a hurry and didn't have time to buy it. When he returned, it had already been sold. Now that it appeared here, he didn't know who put in the effort. The frustration in his heart seemed to have subsided a little. He got up from the sofa and walked to the black box. He reached out and gently touched the smooth guitar strings. Brotherly, find out who the fan is and give him the money. After all, it was something that cost tens of thousands of yuan. He couldn't possibly let the fans pay for it. Zhao Dali wasn't surprised at all. Look at you. Everyone happily accepts gifts from their fans. You're the only one who's pretentious. Even if the gift is a little expensive, you still have to give the money. Did you forget that time in America when that rich female fan gave you a sports car? You asked me to return it, but he burned the car and said that you don't like it, so it has no value. Isn't that a waste of God's gift? Su Nianhua's expression froze, but he did not refute. Some fans were indeed too young, so it was inevitable that they would be infatuated with someone and be unable to extricate themselves. They would do some irrational things. After all, they were his fans, so he was tolerant most of the time. The female assistant sighed. What's the big deal about burning a car? I think fans nowadays are crazy. The girl who was hugged by Hua Guo at the concert was almost beaten to death by fans today. Zhao Dali tried his best to signal the female assistant with his eyes. However, what she said had already been said, and it fell into Su Nianhua's ears word for word. He suddenly stood up straight and glanced at the female assistant and manager. What did you say? The female assistant looked at Zhao Dali, who was trying his best to signal her with his eyes. She was a little confused. What did they do to Yi Huanyan? Su Nianhua's voice was cold. Zhao Dali frowned and avoided Su Nianhua's gaze. It's late. You should rest early. You should keep a certain distance from your fans. Before she could finish her words, her chest suddenly tightened. Su Nianhua grabbed the collar of her shirt, and she was almost on the ground with only her toes. The burning anger in his eyes was very scary. In addition, his eyes were red because of the concert for days and nights without sleep. He was no different from an evil ghost from hell. You know everything? He roared. What go? The female assistant screamed. This has nothing to do with us, and it has nothing to do with Li Ge. Really. Zhao Dali was being squeezed so hard that he couldn't breathe. He said intermittently, it was the fans who searched for her. They found out where she worked and found out that she had an ambiguous relationship with her boss. However, they were in the same high school, and the vague news that Yi Huanyan pursued Su Nianhua was leaked by Zhao Dali. He didn't dare to say this. Su Nianhua loosened his grip and put Zhao Dali down. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. Zhao Dali covered his chest and coughed for a long time, but he couldn't drive away the chill in front of his eyes. It's all the fans' fault, Brother Hua. The female assistant seemed to want to say something, but when she met Su Nianhua's malicious eyes, she immediately shut her mouth. No matter how many words she wanted to say, they were stuck in her throat. Su Nianhua glanced at the guitar in the black box from the corner of his eyes. He didn't know where the anger came from, but it made him grab the guitar and smash it on the coffee table. Clang, 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 accompanied by the sound of the guitar strings breaking. Everyone in the room furrowed their brows tightly. The glass coffee table and the guitar were both damaged. In the middle of the broken glass, there was a broken guitar. A master's work was destroyed just like that. Zhao Dali's heart ached so much that the corner of his mouth twitched. He couldn't help but say, for a woman you. Su Nianhua glanced over. Wherever the cold light passed, there was silence. Zhao Dali opened his mouth, but in the end, He didn't dare to say anything. Tomorrow's schedule is canceled. He left this sentence behind before entering the bedroom. The female assistant had never seen Sun Yanhua act so arbitrarily. She was stunned for a while before she asked the bedroom, "Hua Goyu, do you have any last-minute arrangements? I'm going to find Yi Huanyan." A sullen voice came from the bedroom, full of guilt and uneasiness. The female assistant glanced at the manager next to her. "Who is this Yi Huanyan? Wasn't he just saved by Hua Ge at the concert and sent to the infirmary? Why does it seem like Hua Ge has known him for a long time?" Zhao Dali glared at her. "Watch your mouth. It's best if you don't see or hear anything today." The assistant was stunned for a moment and hesitated. "Then, what should we do? There's a concert tomorrow night." Zhao Dali first touched his chin and frowned. Then his eyes turned nimbly. "Don't worry, I have a way." If he couldn't handle such a small matter, he wouldn't be able to single-handedly support such an Asian superstar, Sun Yanhua. After the hotel's cleaning lady came over to clean the room, he knocked on the bedroom door. "Hua Ge, open the door. I have something to say to you." There was no movement inside, as if he had already fallen asleep. Zhao Dali frowned and said in a low voice, "Lucian, if you want Yi Huanyan to escape from the attack of your crazy fans, you better open the door." Lucian, Sun Yanhua's original name. 10 years ago, he belonged to Yi Huanyan. Chapter 34. Before Zhao Dali's hand could touch the door panel, there was a click. A gap appeared between the white door frame and the door panel, and a dim light shone through. Sun Yanhua stood behind the door in simple beige pajamas. He held the doorknob with one hand and stared at Zhao Dali with a frown. "What is it?" Lonely nights were always endless. The wind blew through the window with a bleak sound, as if someone was singing, sobbing, and complaining. Some people were drunk, some were sober, and some seemed to be sober, but they were drunk on the streets and alleys. The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up slowly. When she woke up, Ji Xiaoya had just bought breakfast. If she hadn't sat beside the bed for a whole night and felt extremely uncomfortable, she wouldn't have gotten up in the morning. She even went to buy breakfast for the patient. When she put down the breakfast, she saw a female ghost with disheveled hair walk out of the bedroom. "Yo, this is a good disguise. You went directly to the haunted house to apply for a job and saved people the trouble of dressing up." Ji Xiaoya had always been a straightforward person. She didn't sleep well the whole night, so it was normal for her to be a little angry now. There was a dressing mirror in the corner of the living room. It reflected Yi Huanyan's current appearance. She looked like Sadako, who had crawled out of the TV. The difference was that she walked out of the bedroom. Last night, you called your brother Ling Han's name all night. I was almost annoyed to death by you." Hearing the two words Ling Han, Yi Huanyan's heart sank and her face paled. It was as if the scene from yesterday afternoon replayed itself. Her fingers trembled, and she couldn't help but clench into fists. Only then did she suppress the sadness in her heart. Seeing her sad face, Ji Xiaoya didn't have the heart to hurt her anymore. She took out a cup of soy milk and a tea egg from a plastic bag. "If you're not feeling well, take a day off. I'll help you apply for leave when I go to work. Don't waste time. There's preserved egg and lean meat porridge and tea egg on the table. Eat some before you sleep." Yi Huanyan frowned and looked up at the clock on the wall. It was 7:30. It was not too late to pack up. "There's no need to ask for leave. I'll go to work as usual. You had such a high fever yesterday. Don't force yourself." Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes at her and nagged as she changed her shoes at the entrance. "I'm not Ling Han. There's no point in trying to be brave in front of me. I've known you for more than 8 years. I know what you're going to fart when you raise your butt. I know you're worried that Ling Han will come looking for you again, but you can't just ignore your own body. You don't know how to take care of yourself all day long. What's so good about that scumbag?" Speaking of this, she didn't seem to vent her anger and scolded angrily. "If I had known this would happen, I would have quit my secretarial position. I wouldn't have done it no matter how much money I was offered. It's so King frustrating." When they graduated from university, Yi Huanyan had a good relationship with Ling Han, so she and Ji Xiaoya both entered the pleasure department for internships. Originally, Yi Huanyan was the only one in the secretarial position. Ji Xiaoya worked in the human resources department. Later, her relationship with Ling Han deteriorated. Ji Xiaoya was doing well in the human resources department. Suddenly, Ling Han promoted her to the human resources department and replaced her with a female secretary who had been there for many years. No one knew what Ling Han was thinking. Yi Huanyan felt that she had implicated Ji Xiaoya. After all, being a secretary didn't look like a promising position. She didn't care, but Ji Xiaoya still had to support herself. After the human resources department was transferred, she wanted to look for Ling Han, but Ji Xiaoya stopped her. Ling Han offered a high salary for a secretarial position. Ji Xiaoya wouldn't be able to get such a high salary even if she worked in a position she knew for 10 years. At that time, Ji Xiaoya didn't know that Ling Han and Yi Huanyan's relationship had deteriorated. She thought that they were going to have a good time and that she would benefit from it. Yi Huanyan stood where she was and hesitantly twisted the hem of her pajamas. Ji Xiaoya felt anxious. Okay. Come here and let me take a look. I'll let you go when your fever goes down. Yi Huanyan was stubborn. If she didn't let her go, she might pack up and leave the house as soon as she left. She might as well agree to it directly to avoid any trouble. Ji Xiaoya had just come back from outside. Her hands were a little cold. She rubbed them twice before placing them on Ji Xiaoya's forehead. She compared them to herself and sighed. You have a strong recovery ability. You're born to be a masochist, aren't you? In the end, she couldn't persuade her. Pleasure group. Yi Huanyan had just arrived at the secretary's office when she put down her bag and went to knock on the door of the president's office. Come in. Ling Han's voice was very calm, as if there was nothing unusual. Yi Huanyan hurried into the office and closed the door behind her. Because she was in a hurry to explain, she didn't notice that the office today was different from usual. In the office, Ling Han sat behind his desk. 2 buttons of his black shirt were unbuttoned from the neck, faintly revealing his firm chest. His slender fingers tapped lightly on the keyboard of his laptop. He was unusually calm in the face of Yi Huanyan's arrival. But the calmer he was, the less confident Yi Huanyan felt. Last night Han, can I use your towel? Before she could finish, a delicate voice interrupted her. This voice was very familiar to Yi Huanyan. She turned her head abruptly and saw a woman wearing only a bathrobe leaning against the door of the bathroom in the southeast corner of Ling Han's office. The white bathrobe was loosely tied around her waist, and the big waves of maroon hung over her shoulders. A delicate face was always written with the words flirtatious. At this time, she was holding a beige towel with her fingers covered with bright red nail polish. She was looking in her direction tenderly. When she touched Yi Huanyan, she was stunned for a moment because this sudden seemed too sudden, making people feel uncomfortable with excessive performance. Why is there someone? She had been standing at the door of the bathroom for a long time. She had known that Yi Huanyan had come, but she was so pretentious. At this moment, Yi Huanyan was not concerned about Sheng Anren's pretentiousness. She was concerned about what had happened between her and Ling Han, and why Sheng Anren was wearing a bathrobe in the office. Why are you here? She asked uncontrollably. Hearing this, Sheng Anren was slightly stunned. She turned her eyes lightly and looked at Ling Han. Naturally, Ling Han needs me, so I'm here. This is the office, Miss Sheng. Pay attention to your words and deeds. Yi Huanyan felt as if there was a fire coming out of her chest. She tried to suppress it, but she couldn't calm it down. Secretary Yi, pay attention to your identity. Ling Han opened his mouth faintly. His cold voice was like the frost in December, which condensed a layer of cold air in the whole room. He seemed to be afraid that Yi Huanyan hadn't been shocked enough. Then he threw an ambiguous look at Sheng Anren and said in a flirtatious tone, Secretary, Yi doesn't need to point out my private life, does she? Chapter 35. That's right. Sheng Anren received Ling Han's look. She was so happy that she nodded in agreement. She took the opportunity to walk out of the bathroom, walked around the desk, and walked to Ling Han barefooted. Yi Huanyan was trembling all over, but she tried to keep her reserved and calm. President Ling, this is the office. You should pay attention to your words and deeds. If necessary, I'll ask Miss Sheng to go out. She still didn't believe that Ling Han would sleep with other women, even if the scene in front of her was unbearable. Ling Han had a high degree of misophobia. He must be just playing with a woman like Sheng Anren. Oh, Ling Han looked at her and dragged out the end of his voice as if he was mocking her. What right do you have to ask my guest to go out? You're so annoying. I'm not a guest. Secretary Yi likes to watch the scene. Yi Huanyan's eyes were slightly red. She clenched her fingers, turned around, and ran out. No matter how cheap she was, she knew that there was no need to continue watching such a scene. Ling Han really didn't take her seriously. Just like what he said, she was just a bedmate. In his heart, she didn't have the slightest bit of weight. He didn't come back all night, and he didn't ask where she went or who she was with. Did such indifference mean that even if she was his bed partner, he already hated the top of his head? Ji Xiaoya just made coffee and returned to the secretary's office. As soon as she put down the cup, she saw Yi Huanyan stumbling out of the president's office with red eyes. Yen, before she could speak, Yi Huanyan took a stack of documents from the desk and turned to leave. Her suppressed voice sounded wrong to anyone who heard it. There's a problem with the finance department's report. I'll send it over. Hey, just call them and ask them to come and get it themselves. As she spoke, Yi Huanyan had already run away. Ji Xiaoya looked at the closed door of the president's office in confusion. What was going on? Did he get scolded by Ling Han so early in the morning? Passion in the office, and even in front of the secretary. It was said that rich people had some weird fetishes. She didn't expect Ling Han to be no exception. Such vulgarity suddenly became a blessing in Sheng Anren's eyes. Since he had done so much, it was better to push the boat with the current. Initially, she was overjoyed to be called over by Ling Han early in the morning, but when he suddenly said, "Take a shower first," it made her feel a little awkward. It was as if he was disgusted with her. Now that the atmosphere was good, it was not a big deal that she had not taken a shower yet. However, Ling Han suddenly grabbed her finger, and a trace of disgust flashed in his eyes. "Go down," he ordered coldly. "You go back first. I still have something to do." His voice was extremely cold. Sheng Anren couldn't figure out what he was thinking. In his heart, he felt uneasy. He carefully scratched the back of his hand with his fingertips. "I haven't put on my clothes yet," but Ling Han just coldly said, "Then put on your clothes before you go out." The dream was so broken. When Sheng Anren left, he was full of doubts. It was clear that he took the initiative to ask her to come today, but in the end, she performed a striptease and left. He didn't get anything. When she left, she turned over and muttered in her heart and began to figure out what had happened one by one. In the face of her initiative, Ling Han did not refuse. He even watched her take off all her clothes with an appreciative attitude. Then he suddenly asked her to take a shower. Then, before she could take a shower, Secretary came. Then he suddenly took the initiative to call her over and took off her bathrobe. Then Secretary left. Then he said that he was not interested. What was the problem? She couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she thought about it, but she still couldn't connect it to Yi Huanyan. After Sheng Anren left, Ling Han turned on the computer and clicked on today's hot search news. In the early hours of last night, Sun Yanhua suddenly posted, explaining the cause and effect of the concert incident that day. "On Saturday night, I saw a fan in the VIP area closest to the stage fall because of the crowd at the concert site. Out of love for fans, I saved her. I didn't expect to cause serious trouble to this fan. There are a lot of news recently. I hereby explain the reason. I hope my dearest fans and family members can be rational. No matter who was injured that day, as long as I see it, I will save her. This is not an exception, but my original intention. The attached picture was a light injury report issued by the doctor. Yi Huanyan's personal information was hidden on it. But whether it was true or not, since Sun Yanhua personally came out to speak, his fans still had to listen to his words even if they didn't listen to others. What's more, the idol didn't announce his relationship, but set aside his private relationship. The title of Yi Huanyan was only summarized as fan, which comforted the hearts of many fans. For a time, most of the fans on the internet began to change sides, and even began to attack several Weibo bloggers who had led the public opinion to fabricate the contradiction to Yi Huanyan. Overnight, the news changed. The cunning and scheming girl who was originally reviled by everyone suddenly became a lucky person who was favored by her idol, and, at the same time, an innocent victim. Many fans had run to Ji Xiaoya's Weibo to leave comments, saying that they wanted to apologize to her for those irrational fans, and hoped that she could still like Sun Yanhua, as they did in the future. I have seen this girl at the concert site. She looks very elegant, not losing to the big stars. In fact, if she stood together with our brother Hua, she would be a good match. She attracted brother Hua's attention twice. Maybe there will be a chance in the future. I also want to fall in the concert. I have also seen her. She is the type that brother Hua likes. Ah, it was said in the interview before. Looking at the comments under Ji Xiaoya's Weibo, Ling Han's face became worse and worse. Chapter 36. When Yi Huanyan returned to the secretary's office, her eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious that she had cried. Looking at the untouched documents in her hand, Ji Xiaoya felt that this woman's brain was not enough now. She took out the powder from her bag and handed it to her. She asked with concern, "Are you okay? Touch up your makeup." Yi Huanyan took the powder, gritted her teeth, and began to put the powder under her red and swollen eyes. "I'm fine." "Oh, are you really okay? What about the report you sent to the finance department?" She was stunned and hurriedly closed the powder box. "I'll go now." She just said that she was going to deliver the report, but halfway through, she couldn't help running to the bathroom and crying. She was afraid of being heard, so she could only grit her teeth. When she came out, she had already forgotten about the report. "Forget it, I'll go for you. President Ling is looking for you." Ji Xiaoya glanced at the president's office worriedly. The internal phone call just came in. "You weren't there, so I answered it for you." "You? Is it because you didn't go back last night?" "I'll explain it for you. It's not about that. It's nothing." Yi Huanyan didn't want Ji Xiaoya to get involved, so she quickly refused. "Help me deliver the report." "Thank you." "You're welcome." She took the document and turned to leave. When she walked to the door, she still looked back at Yi Huanyan worriedly. "If there's anything, feel free to call me. I'm not afraid of anything." Just when she saw Sheng Anren come out with a proud look, she felt that something was wrong. Yi Huanyan must have bumped into something when she went in, so she was so distracted. "Well, you can go. I'm fine." After Ji Xiaoya left, Yi Huanyan took a deep breath, clenched her fingers, and walked into the president's office. She was wearing Ji Xiaoya's professional attire. Ji Xiaoya was slightly smaller than her, so she forced herself to pick out a few large-size clothes to wear, but they still seemed to fit her figure too well. She was wearing a pink tight-fitting skirt and a white shirt that was a little overburdened at the chest area. Fortunately, she had a jacket that came with the skirt to cover it up a little. When she walked into the office, she was greeted by a chill. "Yi Huanyan, you have a good relationship with your old lover. Such a trivial matter can make him protect you like this. Why did you just show a sad look? You're really good at acting." Yi Huanyan had no idea what he was talking about. She only felt that he was looking for trouble again. Thinking of the scene, just now, she was burning with anger. At the moment, Sheng Anren was not here, but the smell of her perfume still lingered in the room. She asked tremblingly, "You slept with Sheng Anren, didn't you?" She didn't answer his question, but instead asked him in an aggressive manner. Ling Han's face instantly darkened. "Who I sleep with, is that something you have the right to control? Who do you think you are? Are you Mrs. Ling or Miss Ling?" This rebuke made Yi Huanyan speechless. Remember, your surname is Yi, Secretary Yi. My father and your mother died a long time ago. You are neither the eldest daughter of the Ling family nor the young madam of my Ling family. It was you who willingly lowered yourself and climbed into my bed. After using it for a long time, you will get tired of it. Don't you think it's not a fake? Unknowingly, her palms were full of fingernail marks. Yi Huanyan bit her lips, but she still couldn't suppress her trembling. Her legs were numb, as if she couldn't move. She wanted to escape from this place, and never wanted to listen to Ling Han say these words again. Then you can change. Never change back. When she said that, tears were already streaming down her face. Her forbearance for the past 6 months seemed to have become a huge joke. She hoped that he would change his mind and return to his previous gentle self, but in exchange, she only had a dispensable identity. At first, she thought that he was just saying it. After all, after being together for so many years, she knew that he was a person with a hard mouth and a soft heart. But now, he had become so cold that she didn't dare to approach him. A trace of anger flashed across Ling Han's face. What did you say? Say it again? I regret it, Ling Han. Even if I took the initiative to provoke you first, and you were angry and wanted to punish me, I could accept it. I thought that you had me in your heart, but now it seems that I understand that I was too stupid. Yi Huanyan clenched her fingers, and no matter how her nails dug into her flesh, she still couldn't ease the pain in her heart when she said these words. So let's end it. You are also tired of me, and I don't want to pester you anymore. For so long, it was she who had been pestering him. It was she who had been repenting and atoning for her sins. It was she who had been apologizing for taking advantage of him when he was drunk that day. It was she who had ignored his opinion and ran to her grandmother to say that she wanted to marry him. In the end, they hated each other and tortured each other. Heh, Ling Han sneered. You actually wishfully think that I have you in my heart? I really don't know who gave you that illusion. Yes, it's gone now. I see it clearly. Yi Huanyan looked up. Her eyes were dry of tears, but they didn't dry up. At this moment, there was no emotion in her eyes when she looked at Ling Han. So I won't pester you anymore. She turned around and walked towards the office door without waiting for Ling Han's answer. Her voice was very muffled, and it gradually faded away. President Ling, I don't feel well today. I want to take half a day off. Ling Han looked at her back, and his mind was suddenly in a mess. He bounced up from the chair without thinking. Who said you could leave? After an angry roar, Yi Huanyan's hand that was about to open the door was fiercely grabbed in the air. Her whole body turned half a circle, and she was facing Ling Han. He stared at her condescendingly, and his eyes were full of frost. Where are you going? Are you going to find your old lover to talk about the old days? President Ling, since my relationship with you is over, no matter who I find, it's my freedom. Yi Huanyan didn't know where her confidence came from, but it was the first time she spoke to Ling Han like this. Her voice was weak and didn't sound intimidating, but it made Ling Han burn with anger. He pulled Yi Huanyan in the direction of the office desk, completely ignoring her painful facial features that were twisted into a ball. He threw her on the edge of the desk, then grabbed her 2 hands that were desperately moving around and fiercely pressed them on the desk behind her. Last night, you didn't see enough with your old lover, did you? You haven't seen him for only 1 morning, and you're already missing him? This kind of insult had already made Yi Huanyan numb. His suspicious and fickle personality had already broken her into pieces. She was like a has-been doll that could be discarded at any time. Let go of me, she cried out in pain. Her 2 arms behind her back were in so much pain that it felt like they were broken. But hit the edge of the desk, and it was so painful that she could barely speak. Before she could finish her sentence, her lips were sealed. It was a cold and emotionless kiss. It was as if he was venting his emotions by sucking on her lips, wrapping her up, piercing her, entangling her, turning her over and over until she was dead. Her eyes flashed red. Ling Han let out a muffled groan. In the blink of an eye, she broke free. Pa, the sound resounded throughout the entire office. Chapter 37. There was a burning pain on his face. He raised his hand and wiped his thin lips with the back of his hand. There was a trace of blood that was eye-catching. She had bitten him and even slapped him. This was the fiercest resistance she had ever put up. However, the culprit panicked. She looked at her palm in panic and stumbled backward. There was no way for her to retreat. An overly large desk blocked all her paths of retreat. Ling Han was thoroughly enraged by her resistance. He smiled coldly, and the blood on his lips sent chills down one's spine. Yi Huanyan screamed. She was violently pulled over and pushed onto the desk. With a crash, the office supplies and the laptop fell to the ground. "Don't touch me. I find it dirty." She struggled and screamed, unwilling to let Ling Han touch her. When Ling Han heard this, he thought about how she had not returned the entire night, and how Sun Yanhua had suddenly clarified the matter. He thought about how she might have met with her old lover in private last night. His eyes were bloodshot, and he did not pity her at all. "Dirty? Let me see how clean you are." Walala walala. It did not stop. Her cries were getting weaker and weaker. Her back rubbed against the desk. At first, it was a little painful. Later on, she sweated so much that it became sticky. Her skin and flesh did not seem to belong to her anymore. The numbness gradually spread throughout her body, including the way she looked at Ling Han. After that, Ling Han sat on the sofa and wiped. Without support, she slid down from the desk and sat on the floor with sore legs. Her hair was disheveled and her clothes were disheveled. It was as though she was fleeing from a disaster. "Go take a shower. I'll get someone to bring in your clothes." That was the only greeting left. She sat there for a long time until Ling Han impatiently urged her. "What are you sitting here for? Are you waiting for someone to come in and see you? So that you can marry into the Ling family legally, right?" She bit her lip and held on to the corner of the table to gather her strength, but she didn't dare to speak. She was afraid that if she opened her mouth, she would cry. She staggered into the bathroom, closed the door, soaked herself in the bathtub, and finally burst into tears. The faint sound of crying came from the bathroom. A trace of guilt flashed across Ling Han's face. He stared at the frosted bathroom door for a while, then got up to pick up the car keys and her pink jacket on the ground. When he picked up the car keys, he saw the laptop that had fallen to the side. Sun Yanhua's gentle and handsome face fell into his eyes, and he immediately felt cold. He dialed the intercom with a sullen face. "Go to the mall and buy a set of women's professional attire and send it over." Ji Xiaoya was at a loss on the other end of the phone. "Now." "Yes." "What size is it? Is it for the client or?" Ji Xiaoya's expression suddenly changed. "Is it for Yan Yan?" Yi Huanyan hadn't come out after so long, and now she wanted to buy clothes. "I'll give you half an hour. Get the full set." After saying this, the other party hung up. Ji Xiaoya didn't dare to imagine what was going on inside. She emphasized the words "full set of clothes." At first, she was quite happy because she had been transferred to the secretary's office, and her salary had been increased. Later on, she gradually realized that there was no one else in the company who was suitable for this position other than her. No matter who it was, the relationship between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han would be exposed. And with Ling Han's attitude, this would definitely cause a lot of trouble for Yi Huanyan. Therefore, her existence was actually a shield between Yi Huanyan and Ling Han to the rest of the company. At first, she didn't think much of this shield. But now, Ling Han's methods were getting more and more overboard. Today, he even did it in the office. Ji Xiaoya's face was stiff with anger. If she wasn't worried about Yi Huanyan, she would have grabbed Ling Han's collar and asked him if he was human. 20 minutes later, she went to the mall to buy a set of business attire and knocked on the door of the CEO's office. "I've bought the clothes." "Where's Yan Yan?" "In the bathroom." Ling Han didn't even raise his head. He sat on the sofa and looked at his laptop. His desk was in a mess, and the floor was covered with documents. There were also some tissues that she didn't understand. It was obvious that he had forced himself on her. Ji Xiaoya's expression froze. She stomped her feet and couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Ling Han. She took the bag and went to the bathroom to knock on the door. She knocked very softly. "Yen Yen, are you in there? I brought the clothes for you." After a long time, a weak voice came from inside. "Put it on the door. Thank you." This voice was so weak that it couldn't be heard clearly if one didn't listen carefully. Ji Xiaoya suppressed her anger, pulled open a corner of the sliding door, and stuffed the bag in. The rustling sound of clothes being put on gradually came from inside. Ji Xiaoya stood at the door and waited helplessly. She couldn't believe what had happened to Yi Huanyan after being forced to do such a thing here. Chapter 38. The bathroom door slowly opened. The sound was not loud, but Ji Xiaoya suddenly heard an ear-piercing roar in her ears. The business attire she had bought was a white V-neck dress with a black blazer on the outside. The collar was actually not very low. Yi Huanyan spread out her hands to cover her chest, but it still could not hide the dense bruises between her fingers. Perhaps there would be some eye-catching marks left behind during sex. But what did such dense bruises mean? Crazy. This man was crazy. How could he be so ruthless? "Ling Han, are you crazy?" Ji Xiaoya immediately turned around and shouted in the direction of the coffee table. "Xiao Yu, I'm fine." A weak voice came from behind her. Ji Xiaoya still wanted to say something, but Yi Huanyan pulled her back. "Let's go. We still have work to do." To hell with work. Ji Xiaoya was really annoyed today. When she saw Yi Huanyan's timid look, she was even more furious. Just as she was about to argue with Ling Han, there was a sudden knock on the door. The cleaning lady came in and looked at them suspiciously. "President Ling, Assistant Xiao asked me to come over and clean." "Okay." Ling Han snorted indifferently. Ji Xiaoya felt the pressure on her wrist lighten. Yi Huanyan had already trotted out with her head down. Her footsteps staggered like a kite with a broken string. She swayed and looked like she could fall at any time. Looking at Yi Huanyan's back, Ji Xiaoya's eyes turned red. "Auntie, please go out for a moment. I have something to talk to President Ling about." The cleaning lady first looked at Ji Xiaoya in surprise. Then she looked at Ling Han on the other side. Ling Han frowned slightly. Just as he was about to refuse, Ji Xiaoya added another sentence. "I need to give President Ling an explanation for what happened last night. I should also let you know what you missed or misunderstood." These words were ambiguous. When the cleaning lady heard these words, she was so scared that her face turned green. She had worked for so long and had never seen anyone who dared to speak to President Ling like this. This little secretary was crazy. Ling Han glanced at her, and she hurried out of the office. After the auntie left, Ji Xiaoya stood there with a cold face. In order to gain confidence, she clenched her fists and asked coldly, "Why did you treat Yen Yen like this? You know that the person she cares about most in her heart is you. In this world, you are her only family member." Hearing this, Ling Han stared at her with a look of disdain. "Oh, the person she cares about the most is me? Then you didn't return home last night because of me? You came early this morning and told me that you wanted to cut off all ties with me because of me?" Ji Xiaoya was stunned at first. She was surprised that Ling Han had misunderstood what happened last night. He definitely still cared about her. Secondly, Yi Huanyan actually dared to say that he wanted to cut off all ties with Ling Han. It was obvious that he had been greatly agitated. She couldn't help but feel even more furious. "Ling Han, don't think that you can treat people as people just because you have some stinky money. Yen Yen didn't return home last night. What evidence do you have to prove that she went to meet an old lover in private? She was surrounded by fans in front of the company building. Where were you at that time? She ran to my house in the rain and had a fever all night. Where were you at that time? Why did you say that you wanted to cut off all ties with me? You still think you're in the right? If I didn't have *King cut off all ties with you, would I have stayed and killed myself?" When he heard that Yi Huanyan was at Ji Xiaoya's house, the playful expression on Ling Han's face froze. The more he listened, the darker his expression became. His cold gaze swept over Ji Xiaoya. He seemed to be in disbelief as he clenched his fists. Good bestie, you're lying through your teeth to exonerate her. Your friendship is really touching. Bullsh *T. Ji Xiaoya trembled in anger at his stubborn bastard attitude. She couldn't help but reveal her true colors as she fiercely yelled at Ling Han. Every word she said was heart-wrenching. Last night, she had a fever of 39.7 degrees Celsius. I couldn't wake her up, no matter how hard I tried. She called out your name for the entire night, and I felt disgusted the entire night. I originally thought that if you could reflect on yourself today and realize her importance, then my disgust would be worth it. I didn't expect you to be such a heartless and unscrupulous person. Ling Han glanced at her coldly. His bone-chilling gaze made her tremble all over. She gritted her teeth and straightened her neck in one go. Go *CK yourself. Even if you glare at me, I'll still say it. At worst, I'll quit this job. Stinky scumbag, you don't want such a good bestie like me to be your wife. You don't want other people to fight for her. Don't be a dog in the manger. If you're really not interested in her, then don't keep her hanging. Take it as me thanking you on behalf of her parents for letting her live. After saying this, it took almost all of her courage. Ji Xiaoya pinched the flesh in her palms and tried hard to look calm as she strode out of the office. She didn't care if Ling Han had anything else to say to her and valiantly walked out of the office. Ling Han was left with a mess and a heart full of mixed feelings. He misunderstood her. He lowered his head and looked at the crumpled pink coat by his feet. His mind suddenly replayed the scene on the office desk just now. He had ravaged her body and she had looked up at him. Her big clear eyes had gradually become numb and utterly disappointed, as if she no longer had any hope for him. Qiao Mu walked in silently. He originally came to get the personnel change signature form, but when he saw the mess on the floor, he was stunned. After he received Ling Han's call from the intercom, he immediately called the cleaning lady. However, it seemed like the cleaning lady had never been here before. Also, Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes at him at the door just now. It was really baffling. Director Ling, the cleaning lady, I let her go out first just now. Ling Han glanced at him with an indifferent expression. It's okay. You can clean after work. Qiao Mu nodded hesitantly. This office was so messy that he had no place to look. He caught a glimpse of a stack of documents on the corner of the desk. It was the one he had sent in this morning, so he picked it up. Ling Han had already signed. When he opened the black folder, a line of words came into his eyes very clearly. Resignation notice due to a work error. Resignation, Finance Department Assistant Wang Li. Qiao Mu glanced at his boss. He was sitting on the sofa in front of his laptop, but he clearly looked absent-minded. He was thinking about something. Director Ling, this Finance Department Assistant, Xiao Wang, still doesn't know that she has been fired. Should I call her to inform her before the notice is issued? Last time, when Ling Han gave her a week off, this woman eagerly went to the finance department to get the so-called allowance and happily returned home. When she signed the notice, she did not even see the words allowance. If he did not inform her, she might even come to work happily next Monday. There was no response for a long time. Qiao Mu cautiously reminded him, Director Ling? Ling Han came back to his senses and glanced at him expressionlessly. He did not know if he had heard what Qiao Mu had just said, but he only said one sentence indifferently. Do as you see fit. Chapter 39. When Ji Xiaoya came out of the office, she coincidentally bumped into Qiao Mu. Because of Ling Han, she did not have a good impression of Qiao Mu. Moreover, when she thought about how she would most likely be fired after making such a ruckus, her attitude became even worse. As a result, when Qiao Mu met her eyes, she rolled her eyes at her in annoyance. Yi Huanyan was sitting in the secretary's office. On her laptop was the stock market situation of Pleasure and the situation of several media companies in the same industry. She lowered her head and made notes on the laptop. She looked so serious and calm. If one ignored her swollen eyes, it was as if she was not the one who had been bullied just now. Ji Xiaoya sighed. It was really the case of a eunuch who was not worried. Yen Yen, what do you plan to do in the future? Yi Huanyan did not look up, as if she wanted to hide her pale face. She said indifferently, continue to work and continue to live. I'm asking about you and Ling Han. Didn't you say that you wanted to cut all ties with him? Ji Xiaoya put her hands on her desk and said sternly, don't tell me you're going back on your word now. As long as you insist on cutting all ties with him, he can't kidnap you, right? Yi Huanyan felt the veins on her temples throbbing. She was very unwilling to talk about this matter right now, but when she heard the two words Ling Han, she felt her legs turn to jelly. She could not help but clench her fists and channel all her strength into her fingertips. The tip of the pencil made a cracking sound, and the broken pencil lead bounced onto the folder on the side. It spun twice before sliding down and landing on the floor. Then it rolled to an unknown corner. Seeing that she was looking at the pen without saying anything, Ji Xiaoya became anxious. Hey, I don't want my job anymore, but you're still so indecisive. Do you want to anger me to death? Yi Huanyan's expression froze. After a while, she slowly opened her mouth. When you want to cut ties, you always say so. When you can't, it's because you don't want to. She continued to stare at the tip of the pen as if she was talking to herself. Ji Xiaoya's language was not very good. Since she was young, she had hated these kinds of things. She felt a headache coming on and immediately showed an impatient expression. What are you talking about? You're thinking too much. In my opinion, the two of you are classic examples of courting death. If you don't cause trouble every day, the two of you will feel uncomfortable. When she thought about how she was going to lose her job because of this, and how Yi Huanyan was still the same as before, willing to be tortured by Ling Han, Ji Xiaoya felt that losing her job was not worth it. She couldn't wait to rush into the office to serve tea and water to Ling Han to atone for her mistake and earn back her high salary. As they were talking, there was a knock on the glass door of the secretary's office. Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan both looked up and saw the manager of the HR department, Gu Peifeng, standing at the door with a document in his arms. He was a handsome young man in a well-ironed suit, looking immaculately dressed. Ji Xiaoya's entire body stiffened. She had just finished yelling at Ling Han, and the HR department was already looking for her to talk about her resignation. Their vengeful heart was too strong. Secretary E, Secretary G, the resignation notice has already been sent to each department's email. Wait a minute. Ji Xiaoya abruptly interrupted Gu Peifeng's words. Let me mentally prepare myself. Gu Peifeng was startled. Do I need to mentally prepare myself? He had just received the scanned copy of this quarter's employee turnover signature form that Xiao Mu sent over. The HR department had just drafted this quarter's recruitment plan and was about to present it to the secretary's office for review before handing it over to Ling Han for his signature. Why not? When the day comes for you, you'll understand how I feel right now. Ji Xiaoya reluctantly glanced at her desk, which was surrounded by a pile of idols. Every day, other than answering calls from the internal line, she would go back and forth between the president's office and the secretary's office several times. There was almost nothing for her to do. She was not as hardworking as Yi Huanyan, who would change the data of her subordinates and make notes. Basically, she would directly call the person back if they were not qualified. All the departments bullied the weak and feared the strong. With her personality, she would not be at a disadvantage in the company. The key was, where could she find a monthly salary of 20,000 yuan? That person's resignation. Gu Peifeng was anxious to confirm this matter in the morning. So when he saw Ji Xiaoya's inexplicably sentimental appearance, his heart was filled with confusion. All right, don't say any more. I already know. I'll pack up my own things. She once again interrupted Gu Peifeng's words and walked behind her desk by herself. She reluctantly bid farewell to her desk and cursed all 18 generations of Ling Han's ancestors in her heart. She looked like she was about to cry. Gu Peifeng was completely at a loss. Secretary Ji, why are you packing up your things? Are you going to take the afternoon off? Then should I ask Secretary Yi to sign this document? Just now, when he saw Yi Huanyan busy at the door, he went to look for Ji Xiaoya. At this moment, Ji Xiaoya slightly regained her senses. Sign. But in an instant, she became dispirited again. The resignation document needs to be signed personally, right? Gu Peifeng thought that Ji Xiaoya wanted to check the paperwork, so he quickly said, "The paperwork has been completed." Other than Xiao Wang from the finance department who was fired, everyone else has signed the document. It is also because of this that the Human Resource Department has reformulated this season's recruitment plan. We need to let President Ling look over it and sign it. Ji Xiaoya was still immersed in the sadness of her resignation. She muttered, "Everyone has signed it. I'm the only one left." Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly sensed something else from Gu Peifeng's words. She was stunned. "What did you say? What did you send?" The quarterly recruitment plan. Gu Peifeng was young and had just been promoted to assistant manager. He did not dare to offend the people in the secretarial department. When he saw Ji Xiaoya suddenly stare at him and ask him this question, he was so scared that he stuttered and stuttered. Yi Huanyan was speechless when she heard the conversation between the two of them. She had just seen the resignation notice that Gu Peifeng mentioned in her mailbox. Ji Xiaoya's name was not on it at all. She was imagining things on her own and scared Gu Peifeng half to death. Ji Xiaoya could not help but cheer after surviving the ordeal. She took the proposal from Gu Peifeng and even patted him on the shoulder. "I'll send it in as soon as possible. When the time comes, I'll send it to the Human Resources Department." Gu Peifeng was so scared that he thought she had other intentions. No. I'll get it myself. I'll get it myself." It was as if they were Little Red Riding Hood and Grandmother Wolf. When Gu Peifeng was about to leave, Yi Huanyan looked at the resignation notice list in her mailbox and was slightly absent-minded. "Manager Gu, why was Wang Li fired?" Pleasure had never fired anyone before. Even if someone made a mistake and the company did not want to hire them, they would get the Human Resources Department to talk to them. Then they would be asked to submit a resignation notice. This was to make the person feel better. The reason for the resignation would also look better on their resume. Being fired by Pleasure was equivalent to ruining her future in this industry. Gu Peifeng shrugged. He did not seem to know much about this matter. "I'm not too sure about this either. Assistant Xiao personally came to our Human Resources Department to notify us. She might have offended President Ling." Chapter 40. The column on Wang Li's resignation statement was particularly ugly. Work errors have caused financial data errors many times, resulting in low efficiency. After much consideration, we have decided to fire this person. Nowadays, personnel resumes were all electronically standardized online. With such a record, any company's finance department would not be crazy enough to hire her. Is there a problem? Gu Peifeng stood at the door and asked. Yi Huanyan came back to her senses. "No, I'm just asking casually." Yi Huanyan remembered that the conflict with Wang Li happened yesterday. Ling Han had no intention of defending her at all. In front of Wang Li, he even put all the blame on himself for no reason. "What are you thinking about?" After Gu Peifeng left, Ji Xiaoya was busy looking at the recruitment plan that had just been sent. From the corner of her eye, she saw Yi Huanyan in a daze and could not help but ask. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned and hesitated. "Why do you think Xiao Wang was fired by President Ling?" "Who knows?" Ji Xiaoya glanced at the door of the president's office opposite her and lowered her voice guiltily. "Who knows what that crazy person is thinking? Maybe he saw that she was ugly and didn't like her, so he fired her." Even though her name was not on the resignation list now, it did not mean that it would not be tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. She still had to be careful with her words. Yi Huanyan had her own thoughts. Perhaps Ling Han was not as cold to her as he appeared to be. She just did not understand. Since he cared about her, Why did he always say bad things to her when he was with her? Was it just because of what happened before? Half a year ago, she had just walked out of the pain of losing her mother, and she had just had a chance to be intimate with Ling Han under the same roof for a period of time. It was as if they were just one step away from breaking through the window paper, and they would be able to have a proper relationship. That day, for some reason, Ling Han did not return home until after midnight. When she went to work in the morning, she did not see him. Later, when the bar owner called and told her to pay the bill, she found out that Ling Han had been at the bar the whole day. Yi Huanyan had to pay for everything that was broken and the alcohol that was drunk. She had to go through a lot of hardships to bring Ling Han home, but he refused. He kept spouting nonsense, saying that it was not his home. In the end, she had no choice but to take him to a hotel. The night was dark, and she didn't see clearly what kind of hotel she found at the last minute. She only brought her ID card and persuaded the person at the front desk that she didn't want to stay. Only then did she get a room for her. As soon as he entered the house, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. Purple gauze curtains, a large bed covered in roses, and an open bathtub in the middle of the living room. It was a stark reminder to Yi Huanyan that this was no ordinary hotel. When Ling Han saw the bathtub, he pushed and shoved as he took off his clothes. She was so scared that she screamed. She didn't know how she got dragged to bed with him, and she didn't know how it started. Looking at his frowning but still handsome face, she blushed and stared at him for a long time without blinking. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked at her in a daze. He pulled her down and flipped her over. The strong smell of alcohol hit her nose, but Yi Huanyan thought that the smell on his body was very good. Her heart felt like it was going to jump out of her throat, and she didn't dare to move. During that time, the old lady of the Ling family was busy finding a suitable match for her to marry. After all, her mother had passed away, and as the child of her stepmother, she had to live in the old mansion and run to Ling Han's place every 2 to 3 days. It was not legitimate, and sooner or later, people would gossip. The old lady introduced her to a lot of people and forced her to meet a few people. She was not interested, but she couldn't bear to reject the old lady's good intentions. But how could she make the old lady believe that the person she liked was the man in front of her, the man she had called brother for 10 years? His kiss landed on her lips. It was a little cold, but his breath was dry and hot. Gradually, it became raging. Her mind was blank, and she didn't have the chance to think. Everything that happened after that was still vivid in her mind. The first joy of her life appeared in her mind. Although it was a heart-wrenching pain at the beginning, there was a gentleness that couldn't be hidden in his violence. He called her name. Although she was passive at the beginning, she was the one who took the initiative. That night, she thought that she could merge with her brother Ling Han. So she woke up early the next day and ran to the old mansion to confess to the old lady. In her life, she only wanted to marry this one person. Later, it seemed that everything had deviated from the original track. Her brother Ling Han, the most gentle person in the world, seemed to have changed after that night. When he looked at her again, it was as if there was a fierce beast in his eyes, cutting her into pieces inch by inch. The night the old lady made the decision to ask Ling Han to take responsibility and set up a marriage contract with her, he came out of the old mansion with a gloomy face. He didn't say a word and drove home. Then he pulled her out of the car and slammed her on the sofa in the living room. Yi Huanyan, your usual innocence is just a pretense, right? You took the initiative to offer yourself and gained the upper hand by a show of strength. Why? Did you like to read The Art of War since you were young? Brother, I don't understand what you mean. Oh, you're still calling me brother. You slept with your brother. Begged your brother to sleep with you? Then it's really a blessing to be your brother. It was the first time she heard such embarrassing words. The first thought in her mind was that this person didn't seem to be her brother Ling Han. That night, Ling Han took her in the living room with a fury. She was already prepared to marry him. The words he said before were like a gust of wind in her one-track mind, leaving no trace behind. So she didn't resist his demands and even thought that he was willing to accept her. However, the bright light above her head made her eyes hurt. "Can I get on the bed?" She lowered her head and asked him with a red face. She didn't dare to look into his eyes. "My bed is not a bed that just any woman can get on." His actions were very rough. He tore her clothes and ruthlessly trampled on all her love for him in the brightly lit living room. He raised his head, and his pair of cold eyes were filled with coldness. She finally realized that this was a punishment. After that, she enjoyed him every night and received his sudden outbursts of anger at any time and anywhere. She also received the punishment that he kept telling her that she should receive. She always felt that this punishment was because she didn't ask for his permission and had sex with him when he was drunk. Then she went to his grandmother and asked to marry him. It made him feel that he was being threatened. It had been more than half a year since then, but it seemed that this sin couldn't be redeemed. Chapter 41. After work, Yi Huanyan packed up her things and went downstairs to avoid any more trouble. She was going to buy a new phone with Ji Xiaoye. As soon as she reached the door, the scene from yesterday reappeared. A group of fans wearing masks surrounded her and Ji Xiaoye. Not even a drop of water could leak out. It's her, she came out. Go, go, go. The scene from yesterday was still vivid in her mind. Yi Huanyan's ankle was still hurting, and she suddenly panicked. Ji Xiaoye saw the support uniforms the fans were wearing and the blue stickers on their faces. She suddenly came back to her senses and realized that they were Su Nianhua's fans. She protected Yi Huanyan behind her and said, "Hey, let me tell you something. Brother Hua has already clarified on Weibo that my best friend has nothing to do with him. They have nothing to do with each other. Don't accuse others," the leader of the group hurriedly explained. No, we're here to apologize on behalf of those brainless fans." The two of them were stunned when they heard this. "This is an apology gift. We hope that beautiful sister won't be affected by those people. We apologize to you on behalf of Brother Hua." A yellow paper bag was handed to Ji Xiaoye. There was a box of beautifully packaged chocolates inside. Looking at the logo, it was expensive. Ji Xiaoye was a little confused by the sudden change in attitude. She turned around and made way. She looked up and asked, "Yan Yan, look at this." Yi Huanyan was also stunned. Yesterday, they threw eggs at her, and today they were giving her chocolates. Little girls who chased after idols were really fickle. She didn't want to argue with these little girls. "I've received the apology, but the gift, we've also received the gift. After all, after what happened yesterday, our Yan Yan was injured and drenched in the rain. She had a high fever for the whole night. It's only right. Thank you." Ji Xiaoye directly interrupted her polite words and reached out to take the chocolates. "And that's true. That's true." Ji Xiaoye received one gift after another. She buried Ji Xiaoye in a mountain of gifts. After much persuasion, the fans finally dispersed. Yi Huanyan looked at her indifferently. "You wanted to take it, so take it back yourself." I knew you didn't need these." "Then I'll take them. This is the fee for serving you last night." Ji Xiaoye shyly stopped a car by the roadside with a bunch of things in her arms. Some fans even let her in. This treatment was a far cry from Yi Huanyan's pathetic state yesterday. Yi Huanyan sighed helplessly. Looking at the traffic jam, she finally took out her subway card from her bag and went to take the subway. That's good too. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I should go back and rest early. Today, she was both physically and mentally exhausted. She just wanted to have a good sleep. She hoped that nothing else would happen tonight. In the CEO's office of Huanyu Corporation, a man in a suit stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. He frowned as he watched the crowd of fans gradually dissipate downstairs. His expression finally eased. "Xiao Mu, tell the people in the security department to forbid these random people from appearing within 100 meters of the corporation in the future." Behind him, Xiao Mu was slightly taken aback. She seemed to have thought of something and replied, "Yes." After Xiao Mu left, Ling Han still stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. He looked at the woman walking toward the subway entrance with a trace of guilt on his face. Put the bathtub in an hour. The person on the other end of the phone reacted quickly. Sir, are you going home for dinner? What do you need to prepare? I am not going back. After saying this, he hesitated again. Make it light for dinner. Yi Huanyan dragged her tired body into the neighborhood. A limited edition blue sports car was parked behind a large patch of greenery in the neighborhood. Under the black sunglasses on the driver's seat, the man revealed a tender expression. She was so tired today because of what happened yesterday. Seeing that she had safely returned home, the blue sports car started and slowly drove out of the neighborhood. When Yi Huanyan returned home, the servant, Ling Ling, was standing at the door. When she saw her, she looked at the time in surprise. It was almost the same as what Sir said. Ling Ling thought about it and roughly understood. She asked tentatively, Miss Yi, the bathtub is ready. It should be just right for you to take a bath now. She was startled and revealed a tired but grateful smile. Thank you. Ling Ling hesitated and looked at Yi Huanyan's back as she walked toward the bathroom. She asked, Miss Yi, what do you want to eat for dinner? Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. She turned to look at Ling Ling with some confusion in her eyes and said softly, Anything is fine, as long as it's light. Ling Ling nodded. Her obedient attitude made Yi Huanyan suspicious. The servants of the Ling family had never asked her what she wanted to eat. They had always prepared meals according to Ling Han's taste. Even if they knew that Ling Han would not be home at night, they would still prepare dinner or supper according to his taste. And because of Yi Huanyan's existence, the servants only added a pair of chopsticks for her. Ling Ling seemed to be a little abnormal today. Sir, did you call back? Yi Huanyan was not a fool. Without Ling Han's order, most of the servants would rather do nothing. Ling Ling hesitated for a moment. She recalled what Ling Han said on the phone and quickly shook her head. No, it's just that I saw the news these 2 days. I'm afraid that Miss Yi has been bullied outside. Miss Yi is usually very good to us. You don't need to order us to put the bath water on. Yi Huanyan was usually very good to these servants. Even if some of them looked down on her from the bottom of their hearts and regarded her as a vixen who wanted to climb up the social ladder, it did not prevent some of them from secretly caring about Yi Huanyan. After all, if Yi Huanyan really became the mistress of the house, with such a temper and character, they would have a good life. However, such an answer made Yi Huanyan feel a little disappointed. She did not ask any more questions and directly walked into the bathroom barefooted. The mist was dense, and the glass of the bathroom was hazy, faintly reflecting the woman's graceful figure. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see the mottled bruises on her body. After taking a shower, she soaked herself into the bathtub. The warm water soaked her body. Finally, she let out a long sigh of relief. This was probably the most comfortable moment of the day. The white incense lamp emitted a light and elegant fragrance. She rested her head on the edge of the bathtub and looked up at the ceiling. Gradually, her consciousness faded. The halo around the white light above her head grew bigger and bigger, as if it was going to cover her whole body. The black and white light kept flashing. The light seemed to be playing hide and seek with her. After a while, it disappeared, and her vision was pitch black. Chapter 42. On the overpass of Lanjiang City, neon lights crisscrossed, and carriages were like dragons. Qiao Mu had already driven the car around the city twice, but she still could not figure out the boss's thoughts. Director Ling, do you want to go somewhere to sit? Ling Han, who was in the back seat, had a calm expression on his face. When he heard this, he asked indifferently, What time is it? Qiao Mu was slightly taken aback. 9:17. Ling Han looked out the window again, seemingly in a trance, and there was an unconcealable tiredness between his brows. Normally, when Ling Han was like this, he liked to go to lively places. Qiao Mu boldly suggested, There are a few new bars in Lanjiang City. Tian Shufang has opened a few new bars. If President Ling is interested, I can take you there to have a look. Ling Han did not say anything, seemingly agreeing silently. Xiao Mu took it as a tacit agreement. After all, they had already been driving on this road for 2 to 3 hours, so it did not matter where they went. Hence, Xiao Mu turned around at the next interchange and drove toward the city center. At 9 o'clock at night, Lanjiang City was excessively brightly lit. It was even more gorgeous and attractive than during the day. He used extremely gaudy and heavy makeup to decorate the city, making it full of human feelings and fireworks. It seemed that all the lights in the city were lit for him. When the car arrived at the street where Lanjiang Bar was located, Xiao Mu stopped the car and led Ling Han through the crowd of people in the newly opened bar. They found a barely secluded booth behind the dance floor and sat down. Ling Han's appearance was quite outstanding, and with his expensive suit and Vacheron Constantine on his wrist, he attracted a lot of flirtatious men as soon as he sat down. Xiao Mu had just gone to the restroom when a bold man came up to strike up a conversation. "Handsome, are you alone?" The woman in the flirtatious pink tight-fitting dress had pale blue wavy hair draped over her shoulders, looking quite artistic. Upon closer inspection, although she was wearing heavy makeup, her face was quite natural. She did not have a sharp chin due to excessive plastic surgery, nor did she have too much hyaluronic acid injections. It was just that this pickup line was a bit old-fashioned. She could not be considered a first-rate beauty, but she was not mediocre among the second-rate beauties. For a normal man to be able to get such a high price in a nightclub, he would feel that this trip was worth it. Ling Han was naturally no exception. Because of the matter with Yi Huanyan earlier in the day, he was feeling depressed. Even if someone came to entertain him, even if it was a vulgar person, he would not refuse anyone. He raised his head, and his sharp eyes softened under the dazzling lights of the nightclub. "What's wrong? You are?" When the woman met his eyes, her heart started beating wildly. She curled her lips and revealed her signature seductive smile. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have the guts to sit here." "Really? In your opinion, this is considered bold? It doesn't count? I don't usually come to places like this." The woman's coquettish voice could easily confuse people. Usually, people who said that they did not come here often were frequent customers. Ling Han sneered in his heart, but he still looked calm on the surface. His tone was so dull that it was almost boring. "It's good to come here more often. It can train my courage." It was a rather suggestive sentence. Even though it was said in an indifferent tone, it still made the woman who was trying to strike up a conversation overjoyed. She followed Ling Han's words and continued, "You like someone with guts? Have you seen a very courageous woman?" Ling Han had only seen one very courageous woman. So far, she was the first woman who dared to climb into his bed and force him to marry her. She was the only one left. The woman thought that she had a good topic. Normal men would have used this topic to talk about romance. The topic of romance could be sad, but it could also be moved to tears. It was a good topic to close the relationship. Ling Han, however, lost interest at this time. He thought of Yi Huanyan and what happened today. Although he was expressionless, his heart was undulating. When Xiao Mu returned, there was a woman sitting in the original seat. She was drinking a cocktail with a resentful expression. She seemed to be very unwilling. "Miss here, you're the miss. Your whole family is..." The woman glared at Xiao Mu. This man, who was obviously an assistant, happened to answer the words of the person who just left. "If you see my assistant come back to find me, tell him that I'm leaving. If you're not interested, don't flirt." This man was so arrogant that it made people want to throw their glasses. However, when they thought of his face, they felt that this arrogance was not unreasonable. He has something to do, so he left first. The woman's expression eased a little. After all, she still wanted to get close to this little assistant. Xiao Mu frowned. He took out his phone from his pocket and looked down at the line of words flashing on the screen. "I'll be there in 10 minutes." The woman in the low-cut dress was still trying to get close to him. "Handsome, the person who just left was your boss, right? Can you give me your contact number?" Ling Han's sudden departure made Xiao Mu anxious. Now that this woman was trying to get close to him, He was even more disinclined to be perfunctory. He glanced at the rack of gossip magazines next to the bar counter and grumpily said, 15 yuan for one. If you don't have money, you can borrow it. After saying this, he strode away, leaving the woman sitting there alone with her eyes wide open. What kind of person is this? Is he crazy? There was an entertainment magazine and a financial magazine next to the bar counter. They were both the latest issues of the month, and the cover of both was Ling Han. If this woman looked carefully, she would find that the familiar face just now was not the marriage that she had seen thousands of times in her dreams, but a real one. When Ling Han's car arrived at the villa, it was almost 11 o'clock. The servant opened the door, hung up his coat and slippers for him as usual, and asked if he wanted supper. Ling Han glanced in the direction of the master bedroom on the second floor and asked in a seemingly careless manner, "What did you eat tonight?" The servant's expression was a bit strange, and her tone was not quite right. "Yes, I cooked some millet porridge and fried 2 vegetarian dishes according to your instructions." Sir, do you want them?" She didn't eat. Ling Han frowned. The servant's body stiffened. Miss Yi, she. What about her?" Ling Han's expression suddenly tensed up. Where is she? Only then did he realize that there was no light in the master bedroom on the second floor. Yi Huanyan was afraid of the dark, so she could only sleep with a night light on. The 2 servants' legs turned to jelly, and they knelt on the ground in fear. Miss Yi is in the hospital. Yi Huanyan got off work at 5 o'clock and went into the bathroom to take a shower when she got home at 6:30. The servants did not care about her, and by the time they found her, she was almost dead. It was Ling Ling who had prepared dinner and found that she was not out yet. She went to the bathroom door to call her, but there was no response at all. When she opened the door, she saw Yi Huanyan soaking in the water, without a trace of life. Ling Ling was scared out of her wits. She called an ambulance to take her away, leaving the 2 old servants to look after the house. Chapter 43. Young Master. Ling Ling was the one who filled the bath water and called the ambulance. We don't know what happened. We just followed the rules. The aromatherapy lamp in the bathroom was still emitting a faint yellow light at this moment. Ling Han took a deep breath and felt that something was wrong. Who turned on the aromatherapy lamp? The 2 old servants looked at each other. One of them, who was fatter, lowered her head and said, "It was May. Where is she?" She said she had something to do at home 2 days ago and asked for leave. In other words, the aromatherapy lamp had been in Yi Huanyan's bathroom for a long time. There was nothing wrong with the aromatherapy lamp. It was no different from the ones in every bathroom in the villa. The only difference was that it was mixed with essential oil. Ling Han smelled it and knew that it was the lavender essential oil that his friend had brought back from abroad to treat insomnia. After using it for a while, the doctor said that it was too strong and could cause accidents, so he gave it to the servants and told them to throw it away. Now, they took the initiative to change the normal aromatherapy oil in the bathroom. Late at night, outside the hospital ward closest to the villa. May's family isn't very rich, so she always secretly takes some of Miss Ye's things to sell. Usually, it's some kind of branded shopping bag. A shopping bag can sell for more than 100 yuan. I found it twice. When I said that it was her, she said that it was useless to Miss Ye, so she just helped her deal with the trash. Later, she would also take some samples of Miss Ye's cosmetics from a counter. Miss Yi is very narrow-minded. I reminded her a few times, but she didn't take it seriously. Ling Han's face darkened. The essential oil was indeed switched by the servant named May. These servants thought that he was easy to bully because he didn't treat Yi Huanyan well. Usually, they would secretly steal things from her room, but this time, they actually had their eyes on the things she usually used. The things in Ling Han's villa were all of the best quality. A bottle of aromatherapy essential oil was worth more than 10,000 yuan. Who would have thought that there would be someone bold enough to do such a thing? Young master, I'm not sure if May did this. She's been home for a few days now. Why don't we ask her tomorrow when we come to work? No need. When you go back, tell them by the way that from tonight onwards, you don't have to come back. Ling Ling's face stiffened as she stuttered, "Young master, we didn't do anything." Ling Han didn't listen to her explanation. He didn't care that her eyes were red and she was about to cry. He went straight into the ward and shut her out. The night wind was rustling, but it was not necessarily cold. Sometimes inaction was also a sin, at least for Ling Han. He treated Yi Huanyan, who had lived under the same roof for 10 years, like this, let alone a group of servants who had nothing to do with him. In the ward, the air conditioner was on to keep the temperature in the room balanced. In the single ward, a woman was lying on the bed with her brows tightly knitted together, as if she had a nightmare. She choked on water. Fortunately, they found her in time. If they had been a little later, she might not have been saved. She was fine now. The hospital was worried that she would get a respiratory infection, so they wanted to keep her here for observation for the night. He pulled a chair over and stared at the woman on the bed. He didn't know if she was unconscious or sleeping, but his face was ashen. Ever since he heard the doctor's words, his face had slowly darkened. This woman was really troublesome. She almost drowned when taking a bath. She couldn't stand the wind and rain. Even if she left him, there were still many cruel things in this world. He suddenly remembered that morning when she was eating in his car and choked. Her entire face was red and purple. If he hadn't passed her water, she might have choked to death. Who did she inherit this from? Jiang Milan's shrewd appearance didn't look like someone who could give birth to such a stupid daughter. Could it be that she was like her short-lived father? Ling Han even suspected that Jiang Milan's eyes were so sharp that she could read fortunes. If it weren't for her short-lived ex-husband, she wouldn't have been able to marry into the Ling family so easily. When he realized that he was thinking so much, a long time had passed. The woman on the bed didn't seem to be sleeping well. She turned over and turned her back to Ling Han. He immediately retracted his thoughts, and his face turned cold. She didn't forget to hide from him even in her dreams. Didn't she say that she loved him? She was really the same on the outside. After looking at her for a long time, he couldn't help but think about it. In the past 10 years, Ling Han couldn't explain his feelings for Yi Huanyan. After Jiang Milan and Ling Dongming passed away in a car accident, the old madam felt terrible and brought Yi Huanyan to the old mansion to accompany her. However, Yi Huanyan wasn't a member of the Ling family after all. There were many servants who gossiped about her. Without Jiang Milan and Ling Dongming to support her, some of the gossip became even more unrestrained, especially some of the female family members of Ling Dongming's business friends. Ling Han was a person who didn't like to interact with others. They used the excuse of visiting to get close to the old madam. When they saw Yi Huanyan, it was inevitable that they would have some thoughts. First, they praised Yi Huanyan to the skies. Then, they tried to find out the relationship between this girl and the Ling family from the old madam's words. Their words all revealed that they wanted to get close to her. However, when they found out that Yi Huanyan was just a burden brought along by their stepmother, their attitudes immediately changed 180 degrees. Often, the words that were about to come out of their mouths or words that had already been said changed. Something like, "My son will become my nephew, and my husband's younger brother will become a distant cousin who studied abroad." The conditions were not bad, but the meaning changed. In the end, they didn't like Yi Huanyan. This was also one of the reasons why the old madam was anxious to find a good husband for her. After all, she couldn't let the Ling family drag her down. Jiang Milan had served the old madam wholeheartedly when she was alive. Compared to Wen Qingwan's indifference, Jiang Milan was indeed a likable daughter-in-law. The old madam pitied the girl she left behind. After that, Yi Huanyan was brought up by the Ling family. She was always a little uneasy. Ling Han simply found a reason to bring her out of the old mansion and threw her in the house that Jiang Milan and Ling Dongming used to live in. It was a little empty. Ling Han also asked her if she needed to find a nanny, but she rejected him. "How often do you come to see me?" This was the first thing she asked when she moved back there. Ling Han frowned. The company is very busy. Maybe once a week, or maybe once a month. I can't say for sure. Ling Dongming was in the prime of his life. When he suddenly passed away, the power of the company suddenly fell into his hands. Although he had been honing his position as the deputy director for many years, in the eyes of the board of directors, he was still an inexperienced hothead. There were many people who wanted to seize power in the open and in the dark. There were competitors outside, and there were treacherous officials inside. During that period of time, Ling Han was facing enemies from both sides. Indeed, he had no time to care about Yi Huanyan. So when she asked this question, he wasn't trying to evade it. Chapter 44. After the car drove a short distance away from Ling Doming's house, Ling Han saw a white figure sitting on the second-floor balcony from the side mirror. Her two slender legs were swaying, as if they would fall in the next second. His heart suddenly tightened. What are you doing sitting on the balcony? Do you want to die? He closed the car door and roared uncontrollably. The swaying legs on the balcony abruptly froze and slowly retracted under his furious gaze. When Ling Han ran up to the second floor, a certain culprit had already climbed down from the balcony and stood in the bedroom with her head lowered, as if she had done something wrong. A light breeze blew past. The white lace dress was like a piece of fine gauze, and it was soft like a feather. I always stay on the balcony. Nothing has ever happened. She grumbled aggrievedly. Ling Han's face was cold. If you do this again in the future, I'll get people to seal off the balcony. You won't even see the sun. You won't know in the future. Anyway, you don't come to see me. She was still being stubborn, like she didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Faced with such a troublesome historical issue, Ling Han exhaled helplessly. Xiao Mu will bring the luggage over tonight. Open the door for her. I'm working overtime, so if I come back late, I'll go out to eat by myself or order takeout. Yi Huanyan's luggage had already been moved over, so what Xiao Mu was going to give was naturally not hers. So it was Ling Han's. Her cloudy face instantly cleared up, and the speed of the change made Ling Han suspect that she did it on purpose. Really? Without waiting for his response, she spoke first. You already said it, and I heard it. A grown man can't go back on his word. If he does, he's a bastard. He was clearly willing, but after hearing her words, it seemed like he was being forced. A strange look surfaced in Ling Han's eyes, and he didn't want to bother with her anymore. He turned around and walked downstairs. Before he reached the ground floor, he heard the sound of someone running behind him. I want to go back to work tomorrow. After the car accident, Yi Huanyan had suffered a huge blow. She had not gone to work for 2 months. Hearing the sound, Ling Han turned around. At the door of the bedroom, the long-lost smile on Yi Huanyan's face was shining brightly. Compared to the warm spring sun outside the window behind her, it was even more dazzling. Coupled with the white dress, her whole person seemed to be glowing, shining with a faint halo. It's so hot. Why don't you turn on the air conditioner at home? At that time, this was what Ling Han thought. That was a year and a half ago, at the beginning of April, and there were still people on the streets who couldn't stand the cold and wore padded jackets. A year and a half ago, Yi Huanyan's purity and purity were practically fixed in Ling Han's eyes. It had not changed in the past 10 years. From her high school uniform days to her university days, to her university days, to her work at Pleasure Group, and then to Ling Dongming's unexpected death, she changed from one secretary to another secretary. Even her style of dressing was poles apart from when they first met 10 years ago. Even if under the guidance of big shots like Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan, she was already in existence that could not be underestimated in Pleasure Group. Even if there was no big tree like the Ling family, no one would be able to replace her no matter which company she changed to. It was undeniable that when he was attacked from the front and the back, even if Yi Huanyan did not help him much after the tedious and complicated work, there was a cup of refreshing coffee in front of him in the middle of the night, helping him adjust the lamp to a more comfortable distance, or raising the temperature of the air conditioner. Even if Ling Han did not admit that he had been moved by Yi Huanyan before, after that period of time when they were together, he was not willing to give her to anyone else. Even if there was no Yi Huanyan later on by accident, his thoughts became more and more jumbled up, and it was already a mess. He touched his suit pocket and found a cigarette. Remembering that he was in the ward, he glanced at Yi Huanyan, who was sleeping soundly, stood up, and walked towards the door while looking for a lighter. "Don't go." A warm and moist hand came from the palm of his hand that was hanging by his side. He froze as he turned around, and his other hand froze in front of his chest. After pausing for a few seconds, he slowly put down the hand that was touching the lighter and retracted his foot that had already taken a step forward. Yi Huanyan's face was covered in fine beads of sweat. She had a bad fever, but the doctor said in advance that this was a normal symptom and that she would be fine after sweating. At this moment, the hand in his palm was very hot and sticky, but he could not bear to let go. Yi Huanyan did not know that every time she was exhausted and fell asleep, there would always be a figure at the door of the bedroom after taking a shower. Sometimes he would come once, sometimes twice, and sometimes he would stand there for a long time without leaving. Ling Han's insomnia day after day started when he came back from a business trip half a year ago. The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up in the hospital. Ling Han was sitting next to her, and her hand was firmly grasped by him. She glared at him and jerked her hand back. This action woke him up. He slowly opened his eyes, frowned, and stared at her without saying a word. Yi Huanyan held her forehead as if she was dreaming. She got up from the bed and leaned against the headboard. "Why am I here? You can drown to death in the shower. Why are you playing amnesia with me now?" As soon as the cold voice came out, he suppressed the gentleness of last night and did not mention it again. Her whole body stiffened, and she shrank back nervously and asked carefully, "You sent me here? Then you have to be alive to soak in the water until I get home." He stood up and glanced at her. "The doctor will be here in a while. If there's nothing else, go home and stay." "Where are you going?" Her confused voice came from behind. Because of the slight damage to her vocal cords and the fever, her voice was very hoarse. The company can still operate without a secretary, but without a boss, the employees have nothing to eat. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she swallowed the words, "Can you stay with me for a while?" The doctor came to do a checkup and found that her vitals were normal. She could be discharged as usual. "Don't worry, Miss Yi, you can rest for a while. It's still early, and you might not be able to get a taxi," the doctor advised with concern. "Then thank you. You're welcome. It's what I should do." A pair of cold eyes gradually softened outside the observation window of the ward. When he left the hospital, his phone rang. It was Chow Mu. "President Ling, the servants' salaries have been paid, and it will take 2 days to find new servants. How about keeping at least 2 for now? They are still at your house and said that they will wait for you to go back and explain to you." Ling Han frowned. "Keep the one called Ling, drive the rest away." After saying this, he raised his wrist and glanced at it. "Make them disappear with their things in 20 minutes. Before 8 o'clock, Yi Huanyan left the hospital and hailed a taxi on the roadside. It was not rush hour yet, so there was no traffic jam. She got home in 20 minutes and asked the driver to wait at the door for a while before she went in to get the money. As soon as she entered the house, she inexplicably felt that something was not quite right. It seemed that something was missing, and it was a bit lonely. Chapter 45. When Yi Huanyan entered the house and changed her shoes at the entrance, she finally realized that something was wrong. Usually, the servants in the house were busy with their own duties. There were people busy in the kitchen, living room, and laundry room. But today, the whole house was very quiet and empty. She had one foot in the soft pink home slippers and the other foot in her flats. She suddenly froze at the entrance. Where were the people at home? Just as she was thinking, she heard the beeping sound of someone pressing the password. With a click, the door was slightly opened. A short-haired woman struggled to carry a suitcase and squeezed through the gap. She wore a faded pink sportswear. She just stuck her head out of the door. When she saw Yi Huanyan, her face suddenly froze. "Miss Yi, you're back." Yi Huanyan sized up the woman who came in with a surprised expression. "Ling Ling? What happened? Where did you go? Where are the people at home?" Ling Ling was the servant who filled the bathtub for Yi Huanyan last night. She and Mei were the youngest in the family. They were only in their early 20s. The rest of the servants were older aunts. At this time, Ling Ling stood at the door with 2 large black suitcases in her hands. She didn't dare put them down because she didn't want to dirty the carpet at the entrance. She looked at Yi Huanyan with sweat on her forehead. Her face turned pale when she thought about what happened last night. "It's a long story. Miss Yi, why don't you change your shoes and sit down first? I'll tell you." On the sofa in the living room, Ling Ling made a cup of tea and handed it to Yi Huanyan. Her hands were a little cold, so she took it to warm them. "What happened? Where are the other aunts?" "They were all fired." Ling Ling was a little scared and stood to the side, rubbing her hands. "Sit down and tell me." Yi Huanyan frowned. Ling Ling panicked and quickly waved her hands. No, I'm fine standing." Yi Huanyan didn't insist. She just felt that Ling Ling was acting strange today. She seemed to be afraid of her and was very careful with her words and actions, as if she was afraid of stepping on a landmine. "Why did you resign? Who fired him?" Ling Ling hesitated for a moment. "It's young master. After you drowned in the bathroom last night, I sent you to the hospital. Young master arrived in the middle of the night and asked me to come back. He also told the other aunties about the dismissal. This morning, Assistant Xiao gave us our salaries." Yi Huanyan frowned. She did not understand why Ling Han dismissed these people. Ling Ling's face suddenly turned pale, and she knelt down in front of Yi Huanyan. Because she knelt too hastily, her knees hit the floor with a loud bang, scaring Yi Huanyan so much that she jumped up from the sofa. "What are you doing?" "Miss Yi, I was wrong. We were immature in the past, but I really didn't look down on you. I've always worked hard and seriously. We didn't treat you well in the past because I didn't dare to fight back. I was afraid that I wouldn't fit in. I just wanted to work hard. I'm sorry, Miss Yi." Ling Ling was crying and snot. She knelt in front of Yi Huanyan and refused to get up. No matter how hard Yi Huanyan tried to pull her, she wouldn't budge. "Get up first." Yi Huanyan had no strength left. She sat on the floor and yelled with difficulty. "Are you done? Why are you crying? Explain it to me." Ling Ling was so scared by her yelling that she didn't dare to make a sound. Her crying stopped, but she couldn't hold back the sobs in her throat. Her shoulders twitched as if she was burping. Forget it. Drink some water first." Yi Huanyan helplessly supported herself on the sofa and stood up. She passed the teacup on the coffee table to Ling Ling. After gulping down several mouthfuls of water, Ling finally stopped crying. She told her story with a slight choking voice. "Originally, young master wanted to chase us all away, but in the morning, the aunties didn't want to leave, so they asked Assistant Xiao to plead for them. Assistant Xiao made the call in front of us, so we didn't hear what young master said. But in the end, Assistant Xiao said that I was the only one left. She said that it was young master's orders, so I understood everything. Young master despised us for not taking good care of you before. Last night, I sent you to the hospital, so he asked me to stay." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's expression gradually changed. She thought about the whole thing from beginning to end. Her lips curved into a self-deprecating smile. If Ling Han really cared about her that much, why would he torment her until she was on the verge of death and bring trouble to himself? "So, Miss Yi, I was wrong in the past. Please don't hold it against me. I'll definitely work hard in the future." Ling wishfully believed that this batch of helpers were fired because they didn't take good care of her. Yi Huanyan didn't have that much confidence. All of her confidence had disappeared under Ling Han's trampling. She became more rational in this kind of situation. What did you say to him when he went to the hospital last night? Ling Ling told her that I may secretly change the essential oil of the aromatherapy lamp. The trace of strangeness on Yi Huanyan's face gradually disappeared. She laughed, but didn't look happy at all. I see. Ling Ling asked hesitantly as she watched her go up the stairs. She was a little confused. Miss Yi, what do you want to eat for lunch? I'll prepare it early. No need. You should rest. Don't disturb me today. I want to sleep for a while. She held the stairs, and her footsteps became slower and slower. It was as if all her strength was being sucked out of her as she went upstairs. She fell on the snow-white sheets and forced herself to turn over. She looked at the prints on the ceiling with a gloomy expression. Ling Han chased this batch of servants away. Was it because some of them had stolen things while others turned a blind eye to it? Or was it because they didn't respect her? The answer was self-evident in her heart. Ling Han couldn't rub sand in his eyes. Even if she didn't drown, once he found out that these people had such bad characters, they wouldn't be able to stay. It was better not to think too much. Who said that deep love didn't live long, and extreme wisdom would hurt? Now that she thought about it, it made sense. In love, the one who loved the most would be hurt the most. Naturally, she wouldn't have a good life. It would be strange if she could live long if she was depressed all the time. Fortunately, she wasn't a smart person. Yi Huanyan's mind was a mess when she thought about it. Gradually, her eyelids couldn't stay open and she fell asleep. The phone that had been on the bedside all night flashed twice, and an unknown number appeared. Yi Huanyan was in a deep sleep and just thought it was a dream. Her temples were throbbing because of the noise. She turned over the quilt and wrapped herself in it. She closed her eyes and listened. At noon, a black business car stopped in front of the villa. Ling Han got out of the car, took off his coat on the drying rack at the entrance, changed into slippers, and went straight into the living room. Ling Ling was busy in the kitchen alone. She had just finished cooking lunch and was hesitating whether to go upstairs to call someone when she heard a noise in the living room. Chapter 46. She guessed that Ling Han had returned, so she quickly wiped her hands on her apron and hurried out of the kitchen. Young master, are you back for lunch? Ling Han had just walked into the living room when his gaze fell on the dining table not far away. There were 3 dishes and a soup on the table, with meat and vegetables. It was quite sumptuous, and his expression became more satisfied. He raised his head and glanced in the direction of the master bedroom upstairs. Ling Ling immediately understood and quickly said, Miss Yi went to bed as soon as she came back. Before she went to bed, she told me not to disturb her. I just made lunch, so I haven't. Look, bring one upstairs. Ling Han glanced at the dining table and ordered indifferently. Ling Ling quickly nodded and rushed into the kitchen. 2 minutes later, she came out with lunch. She used a lunchbox to pack a meal and directly sent it upstairs. When she went downstairs, Ling Han was sitting at the dining table eating. He glanced at Ling Ling and asked casually, Have you eaten? Ling Ling lowered her head. Miss Yi didn't wake up. I called her twice, but she said to leave it. After that, I didn't dare to call her again. Ling Han's brows furrowed, and there was a layer of frost in his eyes. Okay, I got it. Go, do your work. The bedroom door was slowly pushed open. Under the tailored black suit pants, a pair of blue home slippers rubbed against the floor. The movement was not loud, but it was a little dull. Yi Huanyan. A cold voice sounded from the end of the bed, and it seemed a little empty in the silent bedroom. Yi Huanyan was sleeping soundly. When she heard this call, she thought it was a dream and turned around to ignore it. Seeing that she was ignored, a certain someone's face became even colder, and her voice deepened. Yi Huanyan, since you like this bed so much, why don't you not go to work in the future and lie here every day? Hearing this, Yi Huanyan suddenly woke up and jumped up from the bed. She sat in the middle of the bed with disheveled hair and stared blankly at the man at the end of the bed. It wasn't a dream. Ling Han glanced at her and walked to the side of the bed. He picked up the lunchbox and said coldly, "Why aren't you eating?" Yi Huanyan gradually retracted her gaze from his body. She lowered her head to look at the bedsheet. What entered her eyes was a sea of white. It was somewhat dazzling. "I'm too sleepy. I can't eat." The mattress beneath her tilted slightly to one side. Her entire body stiffened. From a corner of her eyes, she caught sight of Ling Han sitting beside her. His black suit pants were particularly eye-catching on the snow-white bedsheet, causing a few creases to appear. "What? Are you waiting for me to feed you?" A spoonful of egg custard was piled on top of the silver spoon. The texture of the egg custard quivered slightly on the spoon as it hovered in front of her eyes. At the end of the spoon was a hand with distinct joints. She was stunned and reached out to take the spoon. "I'll do it myself. Open your mouth." Ling Han's cold voice stopped her halfway through her outstretched hand. She was stunned and involuntarily opened her mouth. Then, the spoonful of egg custard was sent into her mouth. It melted in her mouth, and when it slid down her throat, she inexplicably felt a little sweet. Did he put sugar in it? "I'll do it myself." She swallowed the egg custard and looked up at Ling Han. He glanced at her expressionlessly. "Do you think I want to feed you? When I'm not paying attention, you're going on a hunger strike. You're very carefree when you don't have to work, aren't you?" As he spoke, he picked up the lunchbox and wrapped one hand around Yi Huanyan's shoulder. Her entire body was wrapped in his arms. He held the lunchbox in front of her chest and held the spoon in his other hand. He scooped a spoonful of rice and sent it to her lips. "Open your mouth." His chest was pressed tightly against her back, and gradually, a trace of heat spread down her spine. His breath swept across the side of her face. It was faintly discernible, like a dream. Yi Huanyan felt as if she hadn't woken up yet. Everything she saw was hazy, and she listened to his instructions. She opened her mouth, chewed, and drank a spoonful of soup. After half a bowl of egg custard and some vegetables were fed, a trace of color gradually returned to her face. Ling Han's chest left her back, and the lunchbox and spoon collided with each other, making a clanging sound. He then placed them steadily on the chair by the side. He turned to look at Yi Huanyan and frowned. He took 2 pieces of paper from the cherry blossom paper box beside the bed and leaned over. Yi Huanyan had an oval face the size of a palm. Her eyes were dark and bright, and the tip of her small nose was like that of a nimble little fox. Her lips were stained with light yellow egg custard, and her confused gaze was like that of a lost kitten. Ling Han held the tissue and approached her. He originally raised his hand to wipe the corner of her mouth, but the moment he got close to her, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. A light breeze blew past, and she blinked. Her eyes were like a pool of spring water. His hand suddenly stopped and changed direction to hold her shoulders. He then leaned over slightly, lowered his head, and sucked on her small lips. Yi Huanyan's entire body stiffened. The pain in her lower body had yet to disappear. She didn't want to endure Ling Han's love at this moment, but she didn't dare to resist. She could only let him kiss her lips and pry open her teeth. Yi Huanyan's consciousness gradually blurred. How could this dream be so real? Assistant Xiao's voice sounded from outside the door. "President Ling, there's not enough time for the afternoon meeting. Do you need me to change the time with the client?" Ling Han's hand paused on his belt, and he glanced at the door unhappily. Yi Huanyan's entire body stiffened, and she instantly regained consciousness. She raised her eyes to look at the man on top of her, and her face was burning red. "No need. I'll leave after I change." His cold voice was accompanied by the sudden lightness of her body. He gradually walked away and entered his own room through the sliding door of the cubicle, leaving behind a clean room of ambiguity and warmth that hadn't had time to fade. Yi Huanyan stroked the skin on her chest. It seemed like there was still some of his warmth. This was one of the few gentleness he had. Her clothes were intact, and her body was intact as well. Other than her slightly red and swollen lips, it seemed like he didn't do anything to her this time. It really did seem like a dream. After Ling Han left, Yi Huanyan went into the bathroom to take a shower. With the previous night's lesson, she didn't dare to take a shower for too long. She didn't turn on the aromatherapy lamp either. Looking at herself in the mirror, there were still some mottled bruises on her body that had yet to disappear. The pain in her lower body was still clear, but when she thought of the gentleness just now, it seemed like all of this would vanish like smoke in thin air. Chapter 47. When she came out of the shower, her hair was still wet. She sat at the head of the bed and saw that her phone was blinking nonstop. She picked it up and glanced at it. There were 3 missed calls, all from unknown numbers. She frowned and cleared the unknown numbers. Then she closed the phone and lay on the bed again. Not long after she fell asleep, her phone rang again. She touched the phone and glanced at the screen. It was still an unknown number. She pressed the answer button and answered weakly. "Hello? Yen Yen?" The familiar voice on the phone was a gentle voice that she could not forget. It was a gentle old dream from her youth. "It's you?" Her voice was a little dry. After coughing twice, she returned to normal. "How did you get my phone number?" "My manager helped me get it." "Yen Yen, how have you been recently?" Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment and said lightly, "I'm fine. I'm fine. Didn't you see me? I'm doing well now." The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment. "I still want to apologize to you face to face about my fans attacking you. It happened because of me. No need, it's not a big deal. Since it's over, we don't have to meet again. You're quite busy." Yi Huanyan interrupted him. Hearing this, the voice on the phone suddenly became anxious. "I'm not busy. I can make time." "I'm quite busy too." Her voice was low, and there was a faint sense of alienation in her tone. There was no sound from the other end of the phone for a long time. She finally felt a little apologetic and said perfunctorily, "Let's talk about it next time. After all, you're a big star. It's not convenient for you to go out." Su Nianhua's voice was embarrassed. "Okay." After hanging up the phone, he sat alone by the bay window of the hotel apartment for a long time. There was a can of beer beside him. As he had to protect his throat, he did not smoke or drink. Today he suddenly felt like drinking and secretly asked his assistant to buy a can of beer behind his manager's back. The sour taste of the beer attacked his taste buds, but it was no match for the sourness in his heart. Everything he had now, his independence, freedom, wealth, and status, all came from a girl who was far away on the other side of the ocean. Therefore, no matter how difficult it was, he managed to survive through the ups and downs of the past 10 years. But now that he had succeeded and gained fame, and he had tens of thousands of fans, he could no longer find the one who had disappeared into the crowd, the one who had only belonged to him back then. "Lu Shun, you sing so well. You'll be performing at the school's Christmas party, right? I'll give you flowers." "Lu Shun, what do you think of me learning how to dance? If you sing in the future, I can dance for you." "Lu Shun, the midterm exam is too difficult. During the exam, my mind is filled with your songs, so you have to take responsibility." "Shun, say that again." "You just said that you like me." Shun said he likes me." Shun, tell your mother that you're not going overseas." "I'll just transfer schools. I've already told my mother. I'll do the transfer procedures tomorrow." "Lu Shun, I won't send you off. Take care, have a safe trip." Between him and Yi Huanyan, from Lu Shun to Shun, and from Shun to Lu Shun, it had only been a year. But from Lu Shun to Su Nianhua, it had taken a full 10 years. Lu Shun could not be her Lu Shun, and when he became Su Nianhua, whether it was Lu Shun or Su Nianhua, she did not need them anymore. 10 years ago, the romantic innocence in school, the unconventional breaking up of Mandarin ducks, and the separation across the ocean seemed to be a necessary plot in the story. All these years, every song he had written had a shadow of Yi Huanyan. He thought that his love had not been let down, and when he returned and met Yi Huanyan, the story would come to a perfect end. But he never thought that when he stepped on the plane with Yi Huanyan and left the city at a height of 10,000 meters, it was already a full stop. Those who knew them back then said that he was heartless, and left just like that. He raised his wine glass and looked at the setting sun. The corners of his mouth curved into a self-mocking smile. If only he could be heartless. He could not let go of those who let others down. After receiving Su Nianhua's call, Yi Huanyan could not sleep. Her limbs were weak, but her eyelids could not close. It was as if as long as she closed her eyes, she would be reminded of what happened 10 years ago. The president's office of Pleasure Group. Sheng Anren, in a black dress, walked out of the elevator in a dignified manner. Her 12-centimeter high heels stepped on the floor with an aura of supremacy in the world. Most of the employees who saw her smiled at her. It was a sense of déjà vu as the boss's wife inspecting the work. She was one of the pillars of Pleasure Group and the most favored woman in front of Ling Han. Naturally, the whole company had to respect her, except for Ji Xiaoya. Miss Sheng, the voice from the secretary's office, made Sheng Anren's hand stop slightly when she reached out to pull the door of the president's office. She turned around and frowned. Secretary Ji? What's the matter? Ji Xiaoya sat facing the door of the president's office. She was leisurely turning a black pen in her hand. Her almond eyes glanced at Sheng Anren contemptuously. Miss Sheng, are you here to see President Ling? Why, what can I do for you, Secretary Ji? Sheng Anren was the best person to look at. When she saw Ji Xiaoya's posture, she knew that she was not a good person. It was common for her to come to Ling Han. As long as Ji Xiaoya was present, she would always make things difficult for her. She would either talk about the company's articles of association or ask her to pay attention to her words and deeds as an artist. She was really eloquent. She complained to Ling Han a few times, but Ling Han ignored her. If it wasn't for the fact that Ji Xiaoya's arms and legs were so thin, she would have suspected that Ji Xiaoya had some sort of ambiguous relationship with Ling Han. That was why she kept making things difficult for her. No advice, but I have reminded Miss Sheng many times that before entering the president's office, you need to report to the secretary class first. We have consulted President Ling before you can go in. This is the rule. That's the rule for you. What's my identity? What's your identity? Sheng Anren didn't want to be outdone. Identity? Ji Xiaoya blinked her big eyes and sneered. We are all employees of the Pleasure Company. Except for one in front of the stage and one behind the scenes, I really can't see the difference between Miss Sheng and us. You. Sheng Anren was angry for a while. The whole company regarded her as the future Mrs. Ling, but there was no real evidence for this kind of thing. It was not good to say it. Except for Ji Xiaoya, she had never seen such a blind person. If anyone can freely enter and leave the president's office, whose fault is it if any confidential document is lost? I can't take such a big responsibility. Besides, even if the old lady comes to President Ling, she does things according to the procedure. Do you think you have more identity than old lady Ling? Being rebuked by Ji Xiaoya like this, Sheng Anren was so angry that she had nothing to say for a while. She stood there angrily, pointing at Ji Xiaoya with a finger painted with bright red nail polish. Like a ghost, she shouted with a sharp voice, "Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this?" Chapter 48. Miss Sheng, don't think too highly of yourself. It'll be unsightly if you end up with nothing in the end. Ji Xiaoya coldly stared at her. She caught a glimpse of a black figure in the elevator's direction from the corner of her eye, and her almond-shaped eyes swiveled. She instantly changed her expression and said with a grin, "Miss Sheng, Director Ling really isn't in the office. How about you come to the secretary's office to have a cup of tea first?" "What tea? I must go in today." Sheng Anren turned around to open the door. She was so angry that she didn't notice the tall figure behind her for a moment. "Director Ling, what do you think?" The voice behind her abruptly caused Sheng Anren's body to stiffen, and her action of opening the door also paused. Yet, it just so happened that the doorknob lightly opened a crack during her pause. "Director Ling, I said you weren't in the office, but Miss Sheng wants to force her way in, so I can't do anything about it." Ji Xiaoya lowered her head with an aggrieved expression, but in reality, Qiao Mu saw the crafty smile in the corner of her eyes. Sheng Anren was scared out of her wits. After she came back last time, Ling Han specially told her that she couldn't enter and leave as she pleased when he wasn't in the office in the future. However, Ji Xiaoya clearly didn't tell her that Ling Han wasn't in the office just now. Han, I really don't know. I'm not. She didn't know where to start with her explanation, so she stuttered incoherently. When she raised her head, her eyes met with Ling Han's icy cold eyes, and she was scared out of her wits. Did you not hear what I said, or did you not take it seriously? His voice wasn't loud, but it was bone-chilling. The door of the director's office locked Sheng Anren outside, and many people came to watch the commotion. It was the first time they saw Sheng Anren lose face in front of Ling Han, so they all talked at once in private. Some of the words that fell into Sheng Anren's ears deepened her resentment towards Ji Xiaoya. She glared angrily at Ji Xiaoya and raised her eyebrows. Her phoenix eyes swept across her face as she said coldly, "Secretary Ji, it's better to help others than to help yourself. You don't know what's good for you. If anything happens in the future, don't blame me for being merciless." Ji Xiaoya had just vented her anger and was very pleased with herself. Hearing her words, she didn't take it seriously at all. She snorted and blinked. "I heard that dogs that bite don't bark." The implication was that Sheng Anren's threat in front of her was just a bluff, and he also scolded her as a dog. The desktop computer screen of the president's office showed the surveillance video of the secretary's office and the corridor. Sheng Anren walked away in a slightly embarrassed manner. Ji Xiaoya's triumphant smile undoubtedly showed that this accident was purely man-made. Qiao Mu spoke up from the side. "President Ling, Secretary Ji treats Miss Sheng like this. Do you need me to remind her to restrain herself?" Ling Han retracted his gaze from the surveillance video and said coldly, "No need. It's also a good thing to dampen Sheng Anren's spirit so that she won't be too ostentatious in the company." Qiao Mu nodded with a strange look in her eyes, but she didn't dare to speak up for Sheng Anren again. After work in the afternoon, Ji Xiaoya was in an extremely good mood. She hummed a song as she walked downstairs. She skipped to the plaza and waved to take a taxi home. A taxi stopped in front of her. She tilted her head to take a look and faintly saw a man sitting in the back seat. "Sir, I'm not carpooling." Before she could finish speaking, the back seat window slowly rolled down, revealing a face wearing sunglasses. Ji Xiaoya stared blankly for a few seconds before covering her mouth and stomping her feet in place. Sun Yanhua waved at her from the car and said meaningfully, "May I have the honor of treating Miss Ji to dinner?" Ji Xiaoya jumped 3 feet into the air in front of the taxi door. Yes. Too much. Oh my God, my idol is treating me to dinner." It was rare for Ling Han to come home early. After meeting the clients, he had a meal with them. Then, he pushed away the rest of the activities and left directly. This surprised a few of the clients. They laughed at him and wondered if he was hiding a mistress at home. That was why he was in such a hurry to go home. When he thought of Yi Huanyan's sickly appearance, he laughed self-deprecatingly. "The pet at home is sick, so I'm going back to take a look." Everyone looked at each other and smiled ambiguously. They pushed and shoved him to drink 2 glasses of wine before giving up. When he got home, Lingling was cleaning up the dining table. She was surprised to see Ling Han come back at this time. "Young master, have you eaten?" Ling Han nodded. His slender fingers reached into his collar and loosened the tie around his neck. He then undid 2 buttons and pulled a chair beside the dining table to sit down. There was a hint of fatigue in his eyes. "I'll get you a glass of water." Lingling hurried into the kitchen with a tray, but found that she hadn't boiled the water yet. When she came out with the hot water to make tea, Ling Han was already gone. She heard the sound of footsteps coming from the 2nd floor. She stood there for a while with the cup in her hand. She didn't say anything and picked up a cloth to continue cleaning the dining table. In the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, there was a big bed in the simple house. A woman with delicate features was lying on the bed. She was sweet and cute. Her back was to the bedroom door as she stared out the window in a daze. She had been in a daze for so long that she didn't notice that the bedroom door was pushed open and Ling Han walked in. The mattress beside her suddenly sank. She was slightly stunned. Just as she was about to turn around, she was held by the shoulder. This familiar smell mixed with the drunken smell of him at night. It lingered around her body, and she shivered. Her body stiffened, and she subconsciously tried to break free. "Don't move. If you move again, I'll do you." His hoarse voice carried a strong smell of alcohol. Yi Huanyan didn't dare to resist. Her back stiffened as she silently leaned against the pillow. Behind her was Ling Han's heavy breathing. His shoulders were like an iron wall, making it impossible for her to move. At first, she didn't feel sleepy. She was always afraid that he would do something to her, so she was on guard. Later, she heard his gradually steady breathing. It was like a lullaby. Her eyelids began to feel numb and sleepy. In the dream, she vaguely felt as if she had returned to the time when she was a baby. She was held in someone's arms and kissed on her forehead intimately. There was also someone who wrapped her in swaddling clothes, carefully wrapping her up tightly and gently patting the blanket on her chest to dispel those unpleasant dreams for her. The night was deep into the water. Beyond the horizon was the endless Milky Way. Under the night sky, people's insignificance was vividly displayed. The tall figure stood by the bed and tucked a certain someone who was sleeping restlessly. Then he walked to the window and looked up at the sky. He had thought about it many times. If it wasn't for that diary, would he and Yi Huanyan be living a happy life now? He walked into the other 2/3 of the master bedroom through the sliding door. He opened the safe and took out an old, yellowed notebook. The original pattern on the mottled cover could no longer be seen. He could only barely see the original brown background. There were vines printed around it, but they were already blurred. He flipped to the first page. Friday, cloudy. Dong Ming has a banquet tonight. I wasn't feeling well, so I took the medicine and slept early. When I woke up, it was raining outside. Thinking that Dong Ming didn't bring an umbrella, I was a little worried. I went downstairs and stood by the window. I thought that when he came back, I would go out with an umbrella to welcome him. The sound of a car approached. There was a woman in the car. Chapter 49. The diary was written more than 10 years ago. It was a thick book, and it recorded an entire year's worth of love, hate, and hatred that a gentle housewife silently swallowed in her stomach. Ling Han casually flipped to a page, and what entered his eyes was an indescribable sense of dejection. When the car stopped, I wanted to take an umbrella to fetch Dongming. His body was cold, and he would cough if he was drenched in the rain. When that happened, he would feel uncomfortable for a long time. But through the window, I saw the beautiful woman in the car talking by his ear, laughing without restraint. And on his face, there was a relaxed and happy expression that I hadn't seen in a long time. I knew that it was probably the end of a road between us. On a certain Friday night 11 years ago, Ling Dongming returned from a banquet. Wan Qingwan went to bed early as usual. And, as usual, he went straight to the study and stayed there for the whole night. July 25th, sunny, Mother is seriously ill. I went back to my parents' home and told Mother that I want to separate from Dongming. Mother probably knew something and advised me to be magnanimous and to protect the family business. It's normal for a man to have women outside. I don't have to think about it, but I should also think about Han, who was sent abroad to study when she was young. Mother said that the woman is young and has a girl with her. If she marries into the family and gives birth to a child or two for Dongming, how will Hana live? Mother is more far-sighted than I am, so let's just end the thought of divorce. Today was the Mid-Autumn Festival. Dongming said that he had something to do at the company and didn't come back. Han Er, who was overseas, called me and said that he was about to finish his studies and his grades were excellent. I was afraid that Han Er wouldn't come back, so I pretended to be angry and threw a tantrum with him, ordering him to come back before the new year. I was afraid that my body wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. In any case, when Han came back, I would hand over all the businesses that I had bought over the years to him. December 15th, cloudy. Han came back today, and Dongming went on a business trip. Even though I asked the butler to pick him up at the airport, I was still worried. I accidentally saw that woman at the airport, wearing a bright red coat, followed by a girl. She was very beautiful, and when she grew up, she would definitely charm many men. That woman seemed to know me and wanted to say hello to me. I stumbled out of the airport and stood outside. It was snowing outside, and I didn't know when that girl stood behind me and gave me an umbrella. She seemed to know everything. His well-defined fingers gripped the edge of the diary. Because he used too much strength, the veins on the back of his hand bulged, as if they were about to burst out of his blood vessels. Ling Han's face gradually darkened. This diary left by Wen Qingwan started from half a year ago, and it reminded him day after day that the ambiguous time between him and Yi Huanyan was a complete joke. The so-called love built on his mother's dignity had become a thick sense of guilt towards his mother. He still remembered that on the day he returned to the country 11 years ago, he couldn't find the butler to pick him up at the airport. When he arrived at the airport, he saw his dazed mother holding a small red umbrella in her hand. Her shoulders were covered in snow, and her plain beige coat made her face look pale. "Mom, why are you here? Where's the butler? Your body isn't very good. Why are you forcing yourself?" At that time, he couldn't understand his mother's ashen expression. He just thought that she was in a daze because of her poor health and the cold winter wind. "It's nothing. Let's go home." Wen Qingwan was always a gentle person. When she saw Ling Han that day, the first sentence she said was especially firm when she said go home. The more a person clung to something, the more they couldn't get it. After Ling Han returned to the country for half a year, Wen Qingwan gradually lost weight. During the new year, she seemed to be in better health. Ling Dongming also put down his work and rushed back to reunite with the family. However, at night, he received a call and went out. It was also that night that Wen Qingwan inexplicably lost her temper at the servants and fired all the servants at home. She even smashed things at home for the first time. The doctor said that the cancer cells had spread, causing the patient to be in a gloomy mood. There would be some extreme psychological changes, so they should be mentally prepared. Therefore, all of this did not happen out of Ling Han's expectations. After that, he carried his almost weightless mother back to the room to rest. However, she refused to sleep and kept saying that there wasn't much time left. She asked him to take out the old record player at home and play it. The old melody spun out of the record player as if it could draw people into that simple and unadorned era. When Qingwan said, "Han, if you fall in love with a girl in the future, you must like her seriously." At that time, Ling Han didn't care about love and relationships. Although he had a few relationships overseas, they were all left unsettled and ended peacefully. "Mom, why are you suddenly saying this? Did my dad make you sad?" "No." When Qingwan held his hand. "Your dad is quite good. It has nothing to do with your dad. I just see that you're still so young and don't know many things. I'm afraid that you'll hurt a girl's heart one day." "How can that be? Do you think your son is such an irresponsible person?" "That's not it." She revealed a rare smile. "I know my son the best. He usually looks like he doesn't care about anything, but when he really cares about something, he can't let go of it more than anyone else." Ling Han left home when he was young and didn't have much attachment to his parents. He didn't take Wen Qingwan's words to heart. He covered her with a blanket and showed his filial piety. He was a little impatient and wanted to go to the study to study his project information. When he walked to the door, he heard Wen Qingwan's words. When he connected it with the truth he found out in the future, it was too cruel and made him regret it too much. "Ling Han, if there comes a day when you don't like that girl anymore, you must tell her clearly. Don't hide it from her. A woman's heart is the most sensitive. She can feel whether you like her or not. It's better to separate than to drag it on." At that time, he was busy looking at the information and didn't realize that when Qingwan called him, she didn't call him Han, but Ling Han. He also didn't realize that what Qingwan said to him was actually for Ling Dongming. The night was dark and the night wind hit the window, making a rustling sound. Ling Han closed the diary and locked it in the safe again. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked to the window. He stared at the night sky outside the window in a daze. Even he couldn't tell if the anger he vented on Yi Huanyan was because he hated her for not stopping Jiang Milan from doing all the bad things, or because he hated himself for not being filial as a son. It had been more than half a year since he found out about what happened back then. That night when he got drunk, Yi Huanyan didn't give him any time to recover and had sex with him. His extremes and uncontrollable emotions became worse after he didn't have that time to recover. He also knew that Yi Huanyan shouldn't be blamed for what happened back then. But he also knew that if he didn't blame Yi Huanyan, he had no reason to be entangled with her. Chapter 50. Ling Han's mother, Qingwan, suffered from depression due to the interference of a mistress. Due to the fact that Ling Han was still young, she had no choice but to endure until she gave Ling Han everything that was rightfully his to him. She finally lost the support of her life and gradually became absent-minded. She found it difficult to eat 3 meals a day. Ling Han took her to the hospital for a checkup. When the report of her late-stage stomach cancer came out, all the doctors attributed the source of her depression to cancer. It was only when the accident happened right before the death that she had been waiting for happened that the hospital staff handed the death notice to Ling Dongming to sign. Only then did he know that regardless of the accident, his wife didn't have much time left. Half a year ago, when Ling Han returned from a business trip, he found this mother's diary in the attic of Ling Dongming's house. It recorded every detail from the moment she found out that Jiang Milan had interfered in her family. From the initial breakdown to the subsequent acquiescence, to the subsequent conflict, and even to the point where she couldn't speak, she had already shown symptoms of depression and absent-mindedness. All of this was caused by Jiang Milan and Ling Dongming. And the source of these two sins died in the car accident a year ago, as if karma was retribution. As a result, even though Ling Han knew so much of the truth, he couldn't find anyone else to vent his anger on. Only Yi Huanyan was left. The moonlight shone through the gaps in the curtains and landed on the girl's face, faintly illuminating her exquisite facial features. Ling Han stood by the bed and stared at her for a long time expressionlessly. His mind kept replaying the words his mother had said to him when she was seriously ill. If you don't like her anymore, you must tell her clearly. It's better to be apart than to drag it on. Rather than saying that he had tortured her for half a year, it was better to say that he had tortured himself for half a year. He didn't get the slightest joy of revenge from her. Every time he hurt her, the thick guilt and self-blame would engulf him like a long night, and then he wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Perhaps letting her go would also be letting himself go. The next morning, when Yi Huanyan woke up, Ling Han was downstairs having breakfast. She glanced at the time on her phone, and her face tensed up. She jumped out of bed and hurriedly rushed to the bathroom to wash her face and put on makeup. Ling stood at the dining table and saw Yi Huanyan running downstairs in a panic. "Miss Yi, do you want pumpkin porridge or black rice porridge for breakfast?" Yi Huanyan glanced at the back of Ling Han's head and gulped. "Black rice, forget it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm running out of time. Give me 2 buns. I'm going to catch the bus." Ling Han glanced at her indifferently. "Sit down and eat. I'll drive you to the company." When these words came out of Ling Han's mouth, it was as if the sun had risen from the west. On the contrary, Yi Huanyan was a little flustered. She sat down skeptically. Ling hurriedly scooped a bowl of black rice porridge and placed it in front of her. "Starting tomorrow, you'll move back to Grandma's place." When she heard this, Yi Huanyan's entire body stiffened. She abruptly raised her head to look at Ling Han, only to discover that he was not looking at her at all. He was still leisurely drinking his porridge. He was still expressionless and unperturbed. It was as if those words just now were her hallucination and not something he said. What? I won't marry you, so starting tomorrow, you'll move back to Grandma's place. Ling Han raised his head and stared at her with a pair of cold eyes. No emotions could be discerned from them. Yi Huanyan wanted to find a trace of reluctance or even a trace of strangeness in his eyes, but she did not succeed. Did this mean that he was completely disgusted with her? I'm not going. She lowered her head and spoke in a muffled voice that seemed to contain a trace of sobbing. You don't have the right to refuse. I'll have Chiao Mu help you pack in the afternoon. Yi Huanyan bit her lip, her face pale. If you don't want me to live here, I'll just go out and rent an apartment. I won't go back to Grandma's place. Back then, it was Grandma who told her to move to Ling Han's place. Now that she had to move back with her tail between her legs, she did not want to listen to Grandma's comforting words or the servants' gossip. Ling Han abruptly stood up, and the chair behind him scraped across the floor with an ear-piercing sound due to his large movement before collapsing to the ground with a clang. Yi Huanyan, are you dissatisfied that your days in the Ling family are too good? Yi Huanyan lowered her head, nearly burying her face in the bowl, and did not utter a single word. She had always been like this. When she was stubborn, she was like a donkey that could anger people to death. Ling Han stood at the corner of the table and coldly stared at her. The two were in a deadlock, as if they would not wait for one side to show weakness and would maintain this posture until the end of time. After a while, Yi Huanyan put down her spoon and avoided Ling Han's gaze as she stood up from the other side. I'm full, so I'll leave first. Ling Han's face darkened, and he chased after her in 2 steps. Stop right there. Who said you could leave? Yi Huanyan stood in the same spot, her head still lowered and her back facing Ling Han. She did not utter a single word. The atmosphere in the room was extremely tense. Ling Ling stood next to the dining table and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Ling Han glanced at the trembling servants from the corner of his eye and exhaled through his nose. He gruffly dragged Yi Huanyan into the car. As they sped along the road, Yi Huanyan gripped her seatbelt and glared at them. She gritted her teeth and held back the nausea in her stomach. She was afraid that she would accidentally vomit and stain Ling Han's expensive leather seat. Halfway through the road, Ling Han suddenly braked. The ear-piercing sound exploded in her ears like thunder and lightning. If it weren't for the seatbelt, Yi Huanyan felt that she would definitely fly out of the car and hit the glass, smashing it into pieces. You said it yourself that you wanted to cut all ties with me. Now, I'm giving you the chance. A cold voice sounded in the car. Ling Han held the steering wheel with a gloomy face. The veins on his forehead faintly revealed his unwillingness. Yi Huanyan held the seatbelt tightly with a lingering fear. Her face was pale, and she revealed an ashen expression. However, she still straightened her neck and said, "That doesn't mean that I won't move back to my grandmother's house. Cutting off all ties doesn't mean that I have to move back to Grandma's place. Just like you said, I'm not a member of the Ling family. My mother is dead, so I have nothing to do with the Ling family. Since you don't want me, then I have nothing to do with you." She was certain that Ling Han was tired of playing with her and had lost all interest in her. So now he wanted to kick her away. However, she was not a rubber ball, and it was not as if you could kick her away to where you wanted her to go. Why are you in such a hurry to cut ties with me? It was rare for him to show mercy, but he was rejected by Yi Huanyan. He was already impatient. When he heard that it had nothing to do with him, his face immediately darkened. He stared at Yi Huanyan's stubborn face, and the resentment in his heart suddenly surged out. If you don't go back to the old house, where do you plan to live? Live with your old lover? Yi Huanyan was extremely angry. She raised her head and was about to refute you before she could say anything. His scorching lips fiercely sealed all her arguments. A pair of large hands pressed the back of her head and pushed her closer to his gloomy face. His thin lips fell and sucked the air out of her mouth, messing up her rationality. Chapter 51. His kiss was urgent and fierce. The hand holding the back of her head seemed to want to embed her into his body. He used a lot of strength. She choked in pain. The softness between her lips and teeth finally stopped plundering and slowly retreated. Ling Han threw her shoulder and avoided her gaze. His expression was cold. It's fine if you don't move back to Grandma's place. You can't rent a house. Move out of the master bedroom. The further you are from my room, the better. Yi Huanyan lowered her head and laughed bitterly. Okay. In Ling Han's villa, the furthest room from him was in the northwest corner of the first floor. It was cold and damp all year round, and it couldn't even be used as a place to store miscellaneous items. It could only be used as a servant's room. Do you think Grandma will let me off so easily if I ask you to rent a house? When the time comes, Grandma will be forced to set the wedding date as you wish. You're really calculating. She was already numb to Ling Han's words. She lowered her head and was a little sleepy. She leaned against the seat and gradually became drowsy. After driving for a long time, Ling Han's cold gaze fell on the sleeping face of the girl beside him. The coldness in his eyes gradually turned warm, and there was even a trace of gentleness. She refused to leave, perhaps because she still had some thoughts about him. It was a pity that she was Jiang Milan's daughter, and his feelings for her couldn't compare to the guilt and self-blame he felt for his mother. After a long time of neglecting her, she would pack up and leave on her own one day. In the secretary's office, Ji Xiaoya piled a thick stack of documents in front of Yi Huanyan and smiled flatteringly. You didn't come yesterday, so I piled up so many things for you to look through. I tried my best to help you deal with some of them, but I really couldn't understand some of them, so I understand. I'll do it. Yi Huanyan looked at Ji Xiaoya helplessly. This girl was good in every way, but she was lazy and greedy. Hey, where did you go yesterday? I don't think I heard that you asked for leave. Ling Han didn't look for you. She lay on top of the pile of documents, blinking her big eyes with a curious look on her face. Yi Huanyan pulled at the edge of the topmost document and looked up at her. If you don't move away, President Ling will ask for a document later. I'll say that you're in charge of it. You didn't do it well yesterday, and you're slacking off today. Don't, I'll move. Ji Xiaoya hurriedly stood up. The black folder was no longer bound and fell easily into Yi Huanyan's hands. She flipped to a page and carefully made notes with a pen and a sticky note. Let me tell you a piece of breaking news. Last night, my idol, Sun Yanhua, had dinner with a young lady. It wasn't strange to hear the word Sun Yanhua from Ji Xiaoya. She mentioned it 7 or 8 times a day, so much so that her ears were about to grow calluses. However, now that she knew that Sun Yanhua was Lu Shun, Yi Huanyan felt a little strange in her heart. However, after she silently digested this strange feeling in her heart, she showed indifference on her face. Oh, Ji Xiaoya wasn't surprised by Yi Huanyan's indifference. She had her trump card. She didn't believe that Yi Huanyan wouldn't be surprised. Aren't you curious about who my idol had dinner with last night? With who? Was it with you? Ji Xiaoya's eyes lit up. Oh, how did you know? Don't you know that my idol is so handsome? Xiao Yu. Yi Huanyan put down the work in her hands and looked up at her seriously. If you're not feeling well today, go to the Human Resources Department and ask for leave. Go to the hospital. If you can't make it, you can go to the mental hospital. When Ji Xiaoya was first obsessed with Sun Yanhua, she would hang around in front of her every 2 to 3 days and say that she dreamed that Sun Yanhua had invited her to dinner and proposed to her last night. She was already used to such things. Oh, I'm telling the truth. If I don't give you some evidence, you'll really... Ji Xiaoya stomped her feet and angrily took out her phone and started to flip through the photos. Look, the phone screen swayed in front of Yi Huanyan. She casually looked up and glanced at it. She originally thought that Ji Xiaoya was using some Photoshop software again, or Sun Yanhua's poster or something like that. However, the 2 people eating in the Western restaurant on the screen, one was gentle and elegant, while the other was mischievous. If this was Photoshop, it would cost a lot of money. Seeing that Yi Huanyan was stunned, Ji Xiaoya finally realized her surprise. She covered her mouth and couldn't stop laughing. She proudly flipped through the photos. Look at this one. I secretly took this picture when Sun Yanhua pulled out a chair for me. This one is when he recommended the steak I ordered. Wow, this one is even more amazing. He found out that I was secretly taking pictures of him and took a selfie with me with my phone. Oh my God, I must have dreamed last night. Oh my God. Ji Xiaoya excitedly stomped her feet and laughed in front of her desk like a lunatic. She didn't notice Yi Huanyan's melancholy expression at all. It might be a coincidence that Sun Yanhua brought her best friend Ji Xiaoya out for a meal, but the place they chose was such a Western restaurant. If she still couldn't figure out what was going on, then she would have been Lu Shen's girlfriend for all those years in vain. That Western restaurant was near the high school Yi Huanyan had transferred to before she was in her second year of high school. Because the price was too high, not many students went there. She had been longing for the boneless lamb chop that Jiang Milan had promised her for a long time. However, Jiang Milan was too busy with work and didn't bring her there for half a year. She also said that it was unsafe for girls to carry too much money with them and didn't give her the money to eat there. At that time, Yi Huanyan was from the Moonlight Clan. It was still possible for her to save up some pocket money to eat KFC. Such a high-end Western restaurant was undoubtedly a fantasy. At that time, she was still chasing after Lu Shen. She pestered and pestered him. She even followed him after school. If Lu Shen hadn't deliberately walked into that Western restaurant to get rid of her that day, she wouldn't have had the inspiration to boast. Lu Shen, do you like the steak here? I like it too. Let me treat you to a meal. As the son of the major shareholder behind the school, Lu Shen was a senior rich second-generation heir. He had a good upbringing since he was young. It was natural for him to treat a girl to a meal. However, what Yi Huanyan didn't expect was that this senior rich second-generation heir was too artistic. He felt that the rotten smell of money would rob him of his artistic aura, so he never brought money with him. I'm done eating. Let's pay the bill and go. After finishing his meal, the senior rich second-generation heir slowly wiped his mouth and picked up the black school bag beside him. Yi Huanyan looked at her idol with a smile. She didn't realize that her idol didn't intend to be a gentleman at this moment. Lu Shen, we're friends from now on. Thank you for treating me to a meal. Who said I was going to treat you to a meal? Aren't you the one treating me? The senior rich second-generation heir had a serious expression on his face. At that time, Yi Huanyan probably didn't even have enough money to buy a bowl of cream of mushroom soup. What happened after that? After that, Yan, let me tell you. Brother Hua told me that the high school next to this Western restaurant was his high school. He used to eat and dash here with his friends. Both of them thought that the other party was treating them, but in the end, they didn't bring any money. I'm dying of laughter. Chapter 52. Yi Huanyan's eyes stayed on the picture of the restaurant for a few seconds. Someone knocked on the door of the secretary's office. She retracted her gaze and looked up at the door as if nothing had happened. Come in. The planning department sent the annual artist training plan and left in a hurry. Yi Huanyan's memories faded away. Ji Xiaoya was still immersed in the excitement of having dinner with her idol. She mumbled for a while. Brother Hua also said that he hasn't seen his old friend in a long time. If there's a chance to meet him, he wants to eat at this restaurant. Oh my God, who saved the galaxy in their previous life? How could they be Brother Hua's old friend? Yi Huanyan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Why couldn't it be Lu Shen who saved the galaxy and had an old friend like her? Brainless fan. Brainless fan. But Brother Hua said that his old friend isn't very willing to see him now. I really don't know what's wrong with his brain. Yi Huanyan was drinking water and coughed twice. Everyone has their own thoughts. Maybe it's better to reminisce than to see each other. Sometimes, the best way to reminisce was to ignore the passion of another person. Since she no longer had Lu Shen in her heart, there was no need to be entangled. However, Ji Xiaoya didn't care about this old friend of hers. I also have Brother Hua's phone number. He told me that it's convenient to contact him in the future. Yi Huanyan couldn't listen to her anymore. She took 2 pieces of tissue and handed it to Ji Xiaoya. Wipe your saliva. You're not familiar with him. It's better not to interact with him. Nowadays, you can't judge a book by its cover. Hey, you can attack me, but you can't attack my idol. Be careful, we can't be sisters. Yi Huanyan spread her hands. Okay, I won't talk about it anymore. You can slowly go away. Don't disturb my work. Tisk. Ji Xiaoya snorted at Yi Huanyan's willingness to work for Ling Han. From what I can see, there are no other men in your eyes except for that crazy Ling Han. I really don't know what's so good about that scumbag. Why are you so desperate for him? My brother Hua is the best. Yi Huanyan's expression froze. She recalled what Ling Han had said in the morning, and her heart sank a little. Even if she risked her life for him, it wouldn't be long before he grew tired of her and lost all pity for her. For the next few days, when Ling Han finished his work in the afternoon and came out of the office, the secretary's office was already empty. Yi Huanyan always left the company at the end of the day, as if she was hiding from something. By the time he got home, the lights in the guest room on the first floor were off and the door was closed. She even left early for work in the morning. When he changed and went downstairs to eat, the servant said that she had left early to catch the bus and the subway. Therefore, during this period of time, Ling Han almost never saw her except in the office. His insomnia became more and more serious, and he didn't feel like eating. His heart was empty, and he felt even more depressed than before. Director Ling, the dinner at the TV station tonight. Chiao Mu came over with Ling Han's schedule to remind him of tonight's event. Ling Han looked at the empty secretary's office and said expressionlessly, "Push it away. Just say that I'm not feeling well." After saying this, he went back to the office to get his suit jacket and car keys. He walked straight to the elevator that led to the parking lot on the first floor. When he got home, it was 6:30 p.m., and Yi Huanyan still hadn't come back. The subway during rush hour was extremely crowded, and it was considered lucky to be able to squeeze in 2 trains. This was within Ling Han's expectations. Ling was surprised that Ling Han came back so early. She hadn't finished making dinner yet, so she panicked. "Young master, you came back so early today. Are you eating at home?" "MHM. Then I'll cook 2 side dishes as soon as possible. You can eat first, no rush, wait for another half an hour." Ling Han sat at the dining table and raised his wrist to look at the time. Ling was a bit confused. What did he mean by another half an hour? Half an hour later, the villa's door opened. Yi Huanyan took her bag and changed out of her high heels at the entrance, looking exhausted. "Ling, I want to eat porridge today." She had just changed into slippers and stepped on the floor of the living room when she saw Ling Han leisurely sitting at the dining table with a bowl of rice in his hand. She thought that she was hallucinating and was stunned for a few seconds. She stuttered and couldn't say a complete sentence. "Ling, you. Why are you?" Ling stood at the dining table and only heard that she wanted to eat porridge. She quickly picked up a bowl of rice and walked to the kitchen. "There's black rice porridge in the fridge this morning. I'll heat up for you." With Ling Han here, Yi Huanyan was a bit scared and didn't dare to be picky. When Ling passed by her, she grabbed her hand and said, "No, it's okay. I'm fine with eating." She had been deliberately avoiding Ling Han recently because she was afraid that he would suddenly find her an eyesore and mention the matter of sending her back to the old mansion. She was very careful when she ate and did things, afraid that she would annoy him. She looked at Ling Han's expression and stuffed rice grains into her mouth one by one. She looked like a frightened rabbit. Ling Han glanced at her from the corner of his eye. "You don't like the food?" "No, it's quite to my taste. It's very good, so it's fun to count the grains of rice." Ling Han's face was expressionless. No one could tell what he was feeling or feeling. Yi Huanyan's heart sank. She hurriedly took a big mouthful of rice. Her cheeks were stuffed, and even chewing was a problem. When she finally swallowed it, she looked like she was struggling, and her face was red. Ling Han frowned and lowered his head to take a bite. He said in a low voice, "Today's rice is too hard." Ling, who was standing at the side, was scared out of her wits. "Really? Maybe I didn't put enough water in it. I'll make it again." "No need. Is there any porridge?" "I'll make it now. There's no leftover this morning?" Ling was stunned. Yes. Do you want to eat it?" "Yes." Ling's eyes widened, as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. She quickly ran away, as if she had been granted amnesty. Ling Han saw her panicked look and touched his nose. "Do I look scary?" There was no one around, so this question was obviously directed at Yi Huanyan. She was busy drinking soup, and her throat was already uncomfortable. Now that she forced herself to swallow a mouthful of rice, she felt a burning pain in her throat. She was slightly stunned when she heard this question. After a while, she honestly said, "The stuffing of the buns should be hand-chopped lean meat. The soy milk and juice should be freshly squeezed for no more than 20 minutes. This is the way of life." You just told Ling that you were going to eat leftovers. She's probably scared. She wasn't the only one who was scared. Yi Huanyan also found it unbelievable. Ling Han had high standards for food and clothing. This was also the reason why he hadn't hired any new servants after the last batch of servants were kicked out. "What else?" he asked. Yi Huanyan's hand froze in the middle of picking up food. What was wrong with him today? "Tell me in detail. What other reasons do the servants at home think I'm scary?" Yi Huanyan swallowed her saliva and withdrew her hand from the food. Chapter 53. Yi Huanyan could not tell whether Ling Han was telling the truth or not. She had never thought that Ling Han was someone who would humbly accept other people's opinions. He had always been conceited. Actually, it's not a lot. It's just that his face is usually a bit sour. She lowered her head and cautiously observed Ling Han's reaction from the corner of her eye. He lowered his head and picked up the food with an indifferent expression. "Continue." Yi Huanyan coughed dryly and gathered her courage to say, "You don't seem to remember the names of the servants in the past, right? The aunties all called each other whatever. If something went wrong in the house, they would be implicated, and the whole group of people would be implicated." She looked up at Ling Han and saw that he was calm, so she continued. "For example, the incense lamp incident this time was actually Mei's theft. Although the other aunties are suspected of covering up for her, you should figure out why they were covering up for her. Because if one of them came to you to complain, and you couldn't remember who stole the item, you might as well directly have Qiao Mu dismiss all of them. It's the same as the current situation. It's only a matter of time, so that's why they all cough. Ling Han's sudden cough startled Yi Huanyan, and her face abruptly paled. I was just speaking casually." She sized up Ling Han, but found that there was nothing unusual on his face. He only took a sip of water from the cup beside him. "So, you can actually change yourself sometimes." Ling Han's voice was not loud, seemingly responding to her. She herself did not dare to believe it. "Actually, we don't need too many servants in the house. Ling can handle it by herself. You also remember her name, so you don't have to worry." Ling Han glanced at her. After saying so much, she only came to such a conclusion. He really didn't know what was in this woman's mind. His expression was indifferent. "Up to you. If you don't mind having no one to serve you and don't find it troublesome, you don't have to find the next batch of servants." "I don't mind the trouble." Yi Huanyan quickly nodded. "I've always felt that it's better to have fewer people in the family. If possible, I don't need a single servant. In the past, there was only one auntie who helped with the cooking at home." Ling Han's face suddenly darkened. "The home you're talking about, is it the Ling family or your previous home?" Yi Huanyan was slightly taken aback. Her smile froze on her face. All of them. My mother doesn't like having too many servants at home. So, yes, it was no wonder that after Ling Dongming and Jiang Milan got married, all the servants in the house were inexplicably dismissed. Thinking of this, Ling Han's face had a trace of ridicule. His mother, Wen Qingwan, was the daughter of a wealthy family. She was used to being served since she was young. Ling Dongming was the same. Therefore, after the two of them got married, the more servants in the house, the better. Each of them had their own duties. Those who cooked would not help to wipe the floor, and those who wiped the floor would not work part-time to run the bath water. When Qingwan was still alive, there was even a servant girl from the countryside who specially helped her carry the dog. What kind of identity is worthy of what kind of life? The frozen smile on Yi Huanyan's face gradually disappeared. Although she didn't quite understand what he was saying, it probably wasn't anything good. The originally rare, harmonious atmosphere was destroyed just like that. She didn't quite understand what had affected Ling Han's unpredictable temper. If it was really because of her actions half a year ago, then his reaction was too extreme. After all, he wasn't the one who had suffered that night. She lowered her head and didn't dare to speak. Coincidentally, Ling Ling came over with a bowl of black rice porridge and placed it in front of Ling Han. "Young master, the porridge is ready." Ling Han glanced at Yi Huanyan, who had her head lowered and didn't say a word. He raised his hand and touched the edge of the bowl. He frowned. "It's too hot." Ling Ling's expression froze. She quickly reached out to take it. "I'll go to the kitchen and get the fan to cool it down for a while." Seeing her flustered expression, Ling Han somehow thought of what Yi Huanyan had just said. He was a little puzzled. Was he usually too strict with the servants? "No need. I still have a contract to look at." Ling Han stood up. Ling Ling was so scared that her whole body froze. She thought he was angry. Trembling, she lowered her head and didn't dare to say a word. She was afraid that Ling Han's next sentence would be that she didn't need to come tomorrow. Yi Huanyan couldn't stand it anymore. She muttered in a low voice, "It's just a little hot. It'll be fine after you blow on it. You don't mind wasting a few minutes." When Ling Han heard this, he glanced at Yi Huanyan. "Secretary Yi, you have a lot of time? You eat the porridge. I still have something to do." The door to the study on the second floor closed with a click. A trace of coldness seemed to remain in the living room and dining room. Ling Ling looked at the porridge on the table and pursed her lips. "Miss Yi, I'll go get another bowl for you." "No need. He hasn't eaten this bowl either." Yi Huanyan picked up Ling Han's bowl of porridge and put it in front of her. She used a spoon to put it into her mouth. After drinking 2 mouthfuls, she thought it tasted good. Seeing Ling Ling still standing to the side with a frightened expression, she knew in her heart that Ling Ling was very uneasy because of the previous batch of servants' dismissal. Recently, she had been acting like a yes-man. "How about this, Ling Ling? You can get another bowl of porridge and let it dry for a while. I'll bring it up to the young master later." Ling Ling felt as if she had been granted amnesty. It was as if a stone in her heart had been lifted. She looked at Yi Huanyan with gratitude. "Okay, I'll go now." "Thank you, Miss Yi." Looking at Ling Ling's back, Yi Huanyan felt a little melancholy. The servants' thoughts were actually very simple. What they made was what the master liked to eat. There was nothing wrong with it. However, Ling Han was a person who never praised others. After he finished eating the porridge, the servant brought it over, but he didn't eat it. It was inevitable that the little girl would feel anxious. After eating, Yi Huanyan stretched in front of the table. Without Ling Han by her side, she was inexplicably satisfied and enjoyed eating. Just as she was about to return to her room to rest, Ling Ling came out of the kitchen with a bowl of porridge and some snacks. She looked at Yi Huanyan expectantly. At this moment, Yi Huanyan was a little regretful that she had promised Ling Ling to bring her the porridge. She looked at the study on the second floor and sighed silently in her heart. Ever since she moved to the guest room, she hadn't gone up there for a week. The two of them seemed to be living in harmony. If she brought this bowl of porridge up now, she felt that if she wasn't careful, she would run into Ling Han's strange temper. What if she ran into the muzzle of the gun? What if he found her troublesome and asked her to move back to the old manor? Miss Yi. Ling Ling stared at her pitifully. Give it to me. Give it to me. Yi Huanyan gritted her teeth and took the tray from Ling Ling's hands. She took a deep breath and stepped out. The solid wooden stairs were covered with a soft carpet. It was very comfortable to step on it, just like stepping on green grass. Yi Huanyan's heart was beating like a drum. Ling Han was different from usual today. Not only was his attitude towards her not as tough as usual, but he even chatted with her for a while during dinner. It was rare for him to do that. All of this made her feel like she was on the eve of a storm. Chapter 54. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Jean Yan's footsteps were a little heavy as she carefully stood at the door of the study with a tray in her hands. The black rice porridge tastes pretty good. Ling Ling even made some snacks for supper. You didn't eat much for dinner. Do you want some more? Behind the desk, Ling Han's eyes were focused on an artist training contract. He didn't look up, as if he didn't hear what Yi Huanyan said. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips and said awkwardly, I don't think you eat supper at night. Then I'd better take it back. Just leave it there. A cold voice interrupted Yi Huanyan's subservience. Huh? A look of astonishment flashed across her face. She thought she had heard wrong. Ling Han raised his head from the desk. His gold-rimmed spectacles reduced the sharpness in his eyes. His entire person vaguely exuded a scholarly aura, as if he had returned to the time when he sat in the study and helped her edit her graduation thesis. Bad hearing? I'll let you leave it there first. I'll finish reading this contract. Oh, okay. She suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly avoided his gaze. The tray was placed on the coffee table. Although she was very careful when she put it down, it still made a sound when it hit the glass coffee table. Yi Huanyan instinctively turned to look at Ling Han, afraid that she would disturb him. She saw that he was frowning slightly and looking in her direction. Their eyes met in the air. She didn't have time to look away, nor did she dare to look straight at him. She just stared blankly for a while. Ling Han looked into those clear eyes and was momentarily dazed. It was as if everything had returned to the time when she had graduated a few years ago. When she was at home editing her thesis day and night, she was so confused that she couldn't even change the format of her thesis. Ahem. Ling Han was the first to react. He coughed twice, covered his mouth, and lowered his head. He shifted his gaze back to the contract. Yi Huanyan also had an embarrassed expression on her face. There was actually a trace of awkwardness. In the past 6 months, the physical intimacy did not allow their spirits to merge. Apart from the necessary work handover in the company, the most common thing between them was Ling Han scolding and humiliating her for no reason. It had been more than 6 months since they last spoke a few words properly. Apart from the matters on the bed, they were more like strangers under the bed, even though they were superior and subordinate. She put down the plate and stood in the study with some hesitation. Looking at the wall of books, her heart slightly moved. Can I borrow a book? She vaguely remembered that a famous scholar once said that good love always starts from borrowing books. Borrowing and returning, there was a back and forth relationship. This was the budding of love, and also the development of love. Although Yi Huanyan did not expect a book to improve her relationship with Ling Han, at least it could ease her embarrassment. Taking the book and leaving the study was the best choice. Ling Han's indifferent voice came from behind her. Up to you. The wall of books was full of books. It was easy to say, but when it came to looking for them, it seemed to be a bit troublesome. She looked through row after row. Some were all in English, some were finance, and some were business management. It seemed that she did not find anything suitable. Did you find it? Suddenly, a voice came from behind her. She panicked and casually picked a book from the shelf. She turned around and waved it. I found it. I'll take it. I'll go first. Wait a minute. Ling Han had just taken off his glasses and stood up from behind the desk. He frowned and looked at the book in her hand. "You've been looking for a long time, and you only found this book?" Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. She subconsciously looked at the book in her hand. An inch above the place where her thumb was pressing was the Chinese translation in capital letters, "Analysis of Sex." When she saw the 4 words clearly, she did not think much of it. When she looked at the place where her finger was pressing, all the blood in her body rushed to her head. Her face was burning like fire. It was as if she had grabbed a hot potato and wanted to immediately throw it out of the window. Ling Han's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. He glanced at her from afar. "If you like this kind of book, you should also find a Chinese translation. Do you know your own English level?" Yi Huanyan swallowed hard. She straightened her neck and stuttered. "I recently felt that learning English should be helpful for work. And this kind of medical book is good for physical and mental health." The more she said, the worse it got. The moment these words came out of her mouth, Yi Huanyan wanted to slap herself. "Oh." He dragged his last syllable. At this moment, he was leaning against the desk. His body was slightly tilted back, and his chin was raised. He looked arrogant and noble. When he looked at Yi Huanyan, he inadvertently revealed a hint of contempt. "Good for physical and mental health." He repeated word by word. He looked at Yi Huanyan's face, which was flushed with blood. "Then why are you blushing?" She subconsciously touched her cheek. It was burning hot. She did not know whether to throw away or take the book in her hand. She suddenly did not know what to do. In the midst of her panic, she seemed to hear Ling Han chuckle, and then the sound of footsteps gradually approached. Just as she raised her head, she was met with Ling Han's broad chest and the familiar smell of tobacco on his body. She quivered and wanted to dodge, but her pair of legs failed to live up to her expectations. It was as if they were filled with lead, and she couldn't move at all. Ling Han stood in front of her, a pair of hands over her shoulders, encircling her in a small space, and gradually found it difficult to breathe. She could feel the top of her head rubbing against his chin. She could feel his breath brushing against her hair. He leaned forward slightly, and his chest brushed past the tip of her nose. The faint but clear smell of men's cologne was like a light breeze. It was mixed with a hint of tobacco, and it made her heart secretly feel an indescribable feeling of reunion after a long separation. The scent that lingered every night in the past was only a few days away, but it made her miss it very much. The man in front of her moved closer to her. She suddenly lost her center of gravity and cried out in surprise. She fell backwards. The back of her head hit the block, but it did not hurt as much as she imagined. Her hands subconsciously held onto the corner of the bookshelf behind her to prevent herself from falling. Ling Han put one hand over her shoulder and bent his upper body slightly. At this moment, that exquisite face was so clear that it lost focus and gradually became blurry. Yi Huanyan's cheeks were swept by the tip of his nose. She felt like she had been electrocuted and trembled all over her body. His widened eyes contained a trace of astonishment that he hadn't been able to restrain in time. This ambiguous position was maintained for a long time. Her heart was in a mess like a ball of wool that could not be sorted out. Her heart seemed like it was going to jump out of her chest and pound nonstop. "If you don't get up now, are you planning to use my hand as a pillow for the rest of your life?" The cold voice pulled her back from her chaotic thoughts. She suddenly came back to her senses and held onto the bookshelf to steady herself. At this moment, the block on the back of her head was suddenly pulled away and fell in front of her eyes. Chapter 55. Ling Han's fingers were slightly red, probably from the weight of the book. He was holding a blue hardcover prose anthology, Tagore's Stray Birds. Only then did Yi Huanyan realize that it was this book that had saved the life of the back of her head. Compared to sex analysis, which is more practical than theoretical, it's more appropriate for a woman to read poetry to improve her self-cultivation. A book of stray birds was slapped on her chest without any pity, causing her to cough uncontrollably. She hugged the book with one hand and sniffed as she secretly made a throat-slitting gesture at Ling Han's back. When Ling Han turned to leave, he was slightly stunned when he heard the cough. From the corner of his eye, he caught sight of her grimacing and making a face at his back. A strange look appeared in his eyes. He walked straight to the coffee table, picked up the bowl of porridge, and sat down. Yi Huanyan held the 2 books in her hands and turned to look at the bookshelf for a long time. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she had gotten the sex analysis book. She scratched her head. Where did this book come from? You can bring it back to study it. A casual voice came from the sofa. Yi Huanyan's mouth twitched. No need. Anyway, I don't really understand it. It's okay. If there's anything you don't understand, you can come to me. I'll teach you. Cough, cough. Yi Huanyan felt as though something had entered her throat. For a moment, she couldn't stop choking. I'm talking about teaching you English. Ling Han turned around and glanced at her indifferently. She was embarrassed by this glance. Her face was burning, and she didn't dare to refute. She hugged the 2 books and ran away. Her fleeing figure was a little flustered. When Ling Han saw it, a trace of warmth appeared in his eyes. His slender fingers clasped the edge of the bowl of black rice porridge that was already cold. He brought the spoon to his mouth and tasted it. It tasted pretty good. The black rice porridge tasted better when it was a little cold. Yi Huanyan hugged the 2 books and ran back to her room on the first floor. She didn't care about Ling Ling's questioning gaze and directly closed the door. She collapsed at the door, panting heavily. Her face was red as though she had run a marathon. She was out of breath. The 2 books in her hands were exceptionally hot. She lowered her head and glanced at them. She instantly closed her eyes sinfully and threw the 2 books on the sofa in the room. Why did she borrow books for no reason? Also, what did Ling Han read usually? No wonder. No wonder. Her face burned up once again as the image hit her. She stomped her feet and plunged into the bathroom. The next morning, Yi Huanyan woke up early as usual. She wanted to catch the bus before Ling Han woke up. Just as she changed and opened the door, she saw Ling Han sitting at the dining table eating. Ling Ling was busy putting the toast on the table. When she saw Yi Huanyan come out, she smiled and said, "Missy, you're up. Breakfast was just made. It's still early, so why don't you leave after breakfast?" "Yes." "It's quite early." Yi Huanyan walked over to the dining table in shock. She had woken up early, so there was no reason not to eat breakfast at home. However, Ling Han had to go to work at 10 o'clock every day. It was only 7 o'clock today, so why was he up? He was dressed neatly too. She hesitated and sat down at the dining table. She took a bite of the toast that Ling Ling served. You. What are you doing today? So early?" When he heard this, Ling Han looked up at her. "The company is going to choose the year-end holiday location for the artists in the next 2 days. Plus, we're wrapping up all the artists' work before the end of the year. Do you need me to say more?" "No, it's okay." Yi Huanyan swallowed the toast and took a sip of milk. She felt at ease, but at the same time, there was a trace of inexplicable disappointment. After drinking the milk, Ling Han slowly wiped his mouth. He got up and walked to the sofa to get his coat. When he saw that Yi Huanyan was still standing, he frowned. "You're not leaving?" Yi Huanyan stuffed a tomato into her mouth and looked at her watch. "It's still early. I'll take the 8 o'clock bus." Ling Han's face suddenly darkened. Yi Huanyan realized that something was wrong and added, "The company didn't tell me to go to work early. As a secretary, your boss is going to work early. Do you have the time to dawdle here?" Ling Han's words made Yi Huanyan tremble. What kind of evil wind was blowing so early in the morning? She thought that if he left early, she wouldn't be in such a hurry to go to work. In the black MPV, it was unbelievably quiet. Other than the sound of the wind blowing through the car's glass, Yi Huanyan could barely hear anything. Her mind was groggy, and she couldn't lift her spirits at all. "Did you read the book you borrowed last night?" Suddenly, Ling Han's voice sounded. she suddenly quivered and woke up from her drowsiness. She answered in a daze, "Which book are you asking about? What do you think?" Ling Han's eyes had a trace of playfulness. Yi Huanyan suddenly realized what kind of mistake she had made. It was a continuation of last night's stupidity. She swallowed her saliva and said, "I read a few pages." "What's the feeling?" "Feeling?" She was slightly stunned. "I haven't read many of Tagore's poems, but there's a line that I quite like." "Which line?" Yi Huanyan was stunned again. She thought that Ling Han was just asking casually on a whim. She didn't expect to really discuss poetry with him in the car, so she could only answer carefully. "If you shed tears for the loss of the stars, then you will also lose the sun." She had been bad at her studies since she was young, and she didn't have any literary talent. She was still interested in short things like poetry. When she was admitted to the Media Academy, it was because she wrote well. During the interview, she was well versed in everything and fooled a bunch of teachers. That was how she got into the Media Academy. She was originally someone who couldn't even get into a university. If it weren't for the fact that Ling Han threw a stack of art school admission guides in front of her in her third year of high school, she probably wouldn't even think about taking the art school entrance exam. Since she was young, she had always been obedient and followed the life path that Jiang Milan had planned for her. She had never had any extraordinary thoughts about her future. The meaning of this poem is that when you lose something, don't put all your attention on the thing you lost. Because the milk that was spilled has already been spilled. No matter how much you feel that it's a pity, there's nothing you can do. Why don't you think about what you have now, so that you won't lose other things when you're not careful? This poem is quite good. It's more positive. Yi Huanyan's voice sounded very calm and gentle in the car. She also explained the poem very clearly. A faint layer of confusion appeared on Ling Han's face, but it didn't fall into her eyes. The past can't be left behind, and the dead can't be pursued. That's what it means, right? This poem doesn't make much sense. Ling Han suddenly interrupted her explanation. His expression was a little gloomy. Yi Huanyan looked at him in shock. "How did you feel when Jiang Milan passed away?" That you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.